A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, I feel safe, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
Alrighty, we are here and we're only 9 minutes late this time, so we're doing okay, I guess. This is a sort of mid-range episode, I suppose.
Just stumbling into the bar a little late.
Yeah,
when
the
you know you're
drinker
in a good
never
position.
arrives on time. What can I say?
When the bartender's like, buddy, you're late. You're like, I know, I'm coming. Opening your wallet up.
It's not about what time I arrive, it's about how I leave.
Yes.
Anyway, well, here we are, and I guess, MauLer, this is going to be a bit of an unusual episode for you because we're kind of kicking off with a Star Trek heavy focus. What can I say?
It's one of the few fandom-y things that I just never got into. I need to. I'm going to find a way one day to sort of do a jumpstart course into Star Trek. But yeah, it's just the one thing I'm like familiar with to the sum of zero. Well, I know Picard and Captain Kirkulus or whatever.
Captain
I'm
Kirk.
Kayerk.
Yeah.
This one I'm going to be listening a lot because I like passionate fans talking about something that's not piss. How about that?
I mean, that is honestly what I'm looking forward to the most about this because, you know, I know an open bar, like, we complain a lot about stuff because, damn, there's just, like, a lot of things to complain about. But it's nice every once in a while to get something that's good. Like, it's at the opposite end of the spectrum. And as it happens, we've got a bunch of people who are very ready to talk about it. So shall we start bringing them in?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this man, we've been trying to get him on open bar for, well, since episode 1, I think. And he's not an easy man to find these days. But we finally managed to track him down and we brought him in. So it's the one and only Dave Cullen from Computer Forever. Hey, man.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please hang up and try again later. Beep.
It's great to have you on, man. Honestly, this has taken forever to get arranged, but I'm glad we finally did it.
It's about bloody time. And we're talking about something that we're positive about. So this is extremely rare, gentlemen. Hello, MauLer.
Hello.
This is a nice way to kick it off, yeah. Yeah, man, I'll just fanboy for a second. Like, man, honestly, I've been a fan of your channel, like, forever, basically, long before mine ever took off. Loved your takes on Star Trek, Star Wars, like so many classic sci-fi movies. I love the fact that you're going back to these like dystopian, you know, sci-fi future movies from the 70s. It's great stuff to listen to, man. I honestly love your insights, so it's great to finally have you here.
Same. Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor, gentlemen.
We have also got, now, we've got Meyer Burnett, who's also coming in, but he's basically had a meeting that had to get rescheduled, and so he's going to be about 20 minutes late coming in. So he's kind of like Gary, you know, but speaking of Gary, we've got Gary here as well. People were asking for him in chat, like, what's his take on this? Well, here he is. You can find out right now.
Oh my
Let's
God.
do
it. You didn't expect that, did you? Here he
No.
is.
And I'm on a live stream with Dave Cullen too. I'm kind of geeking out here.
Yeah.
You know how we got him? He's like one of the last gingers because of the ginger side. So we just
Have to
chased him
protect him.
down.
Put him in a bunker,
Scottish
yeah.
Highlands.
Yeah,
and-
I'm going to be recast as a diverse female next time around, unfortunately. So,
as a
yeah.
a strong black female, and sides of your heads will be shaved.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
Yeah, we find him like under a parasol, like avoiding the sun, you know. So
Yeah.
it's fine. But gentlemen, well, this is we've officially taken a little turn into the world of the surreal because I never thought this was going to happen, but here we are. I'm going to sit here and praise a modern Star Trek TV show. I can't believe it's happening, and yet it has. And like, I guess just for the people watching this, we should clarify a little bit what we've been able to experience with Picard season 3, because we got the opportunity to watch. Well, in my case, the first 6 episodes. So I'm kind of ahead of I guess a lot of the people who might be tuning in for this. And in the case of Dave and Gary, well, you've gone a little bit further than that, I guess. So you guys have seen the whole thing. I hate you.
Yeah, Dave, you should start. You've done videos. And by the way,
Mhm.
now that I'm actually talking to you, you did the OG like Doctor Who video, like when it was starting to go woke. So praise you for that.
Yes, God, yeah, and I'm actually glad to say that I can say with confidence that that season 3 isn't woke at all. I
Yeah.
certainly didn't pick up on anything. Certainly nothing overt. There's no there's no like bashing on the straight white male. Picard is not being put in his place. He's very much Picard again, as best as an 80-year-old Patrick Stewart can play him, of course. And I think he does a far better job than previous seasons. And there's no like Mary Sue, there's none of this sort of stuff. So there's also no gendery nonsense to worry about or dance around. So yeah, I mean, look, I thought about, I've never taken screeners before, and that can be a double-edged sword, and people can sort of worry about, whether you're compromising yourself to a certain degree and whether you're obliged to be nice. If it had been bad, I can say I would have just said, look, thank you very much to Terry and thank you very much to Paramount. If you like the first 2 seasons, you're going to love this. And I would have left it at that, but the fact that I have so much to say means that I really liked it. And I haven't actually been excited about, because we all saw Robert Meyer Burnett and we're like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Seriously? And he's been out there on an island on his own for a year. And I was very confident in his analysis that I was excited to finally watch this. And it's the first time I've been excited for Star Trek since the last season of Enterprise, when there was all that buzz about In a Mirror Darkly, and then bringing back the Defiant and the original sets and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think it's been warranted, having seen all 10. But even if you've just seen the first 6, they have something special here for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, it was that combination, because I had already made a video basically saying with Picard season 2, I'm done, I'm out, can't be arsed with this anymore. Life's too short for this bullshit. It's really just, it's not fun watching my favorite characters just get humiliated and trashed and ruined. And I just checked out. And so I had no intention of watching season 3. And then Robert started talking about it on social media and really hyper enthusiastic. Like, this is a complete 180 in terms of quality, in terms of writing, direction, everything. It's a whole new creative team behind it. I didn't know what to think about that, because sometimes like optimism can get you so far, but it can take you directions you don't want to go. And then it started getting out. It started coming out, available to people. He was singing its praises, and then you, Dave, I think you were the deciding factor for me. Like, you got a chance to watch it, and you gave it a pretty positive review. And I thought, God's sake, okay, fine, I'll give it a try. Like, there must be something in it. If these guys, like Robert, who's been super critical of modern Star Trek, you, who've been just as critical of it, if both of you have been impressed by this thing, it's got to be at least worth giving a try. And so I did. And after probably halfway through episode 2, I was pretty much hooked on it. And it just carried on from there. It's a completely different show from the first 2 seasons. I don't think you even need to bother watching those first 2 seasons to get into this. They're not worth your time. You can jump right into it. People, like, the characters feel like themselves again. Picard feels like he has a spine again. Like, he actually acts like Picard now. There's reverence for him. He's like a celebrity. He's a legend. Within the Federation, he's treated with respect, and all the other characters are as well. And I'm only 6 episodes in. I didn't even get a hint of wokeness in this, for lack of a better word. I didn't get even a hint that they were trying to push some identity politics garbage into it. It was just a show made by a guy who clearly has a love for Star Trek, and he wanted to give this as I guess a love letter to that whole TNG era of Star Trek. And I think he did a great job with it. There's little things here and there that I can definitely pick up on, and I guess we'll talk about it as we go. But man, I was wildly surprised by this. It's not what I expected at all, but genuinely good stuff.
How much did they pay you to say that? Huh?
Chill.
This is the thing, like, because I spoke to Terry Matalis about this, and I said, like, you know, I'm willing to take a look at the first 6 episodes because I know you can make them available as a screener, and I can give an honest, fair review. That's all I can promise you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If I still think it's garbage, I'll be honest about that. I said it's fine. You know, judge it on its own merits. Best I can do. Didn't get paid anything, didn't get any like premieres, didn't get any goodie bags or anything. Just got to watch the episodes.
Didn't even get
I
a
can't
bottle
say
of Jack
fairer
Daniels?
than that, man.
No alcohol given to you?
No Chateau Picard.
Yeah.
No Chateau Picard, nothing. And the
Wine.
thing is, that's all I want. Like that's all I would want for someone like that. If they started trying to give me goodie bags or say like, oh, we'll take you to this premiere or whatever, that would be an alarm bell, because it's like they're trying to butter me up so that I'll say nice things about it. But if it's just purely like, here's the show, you know, take a look if you want and see what you think. That's it. And it was the same from Robert. He just literally said to people, give it 1 episode. Give it that. Give it a fair try. If you don't like it, fair play, but I think you probably will. And that's probably what I would say to people who understandably have loads of doubts about it and who've been burned pretty bad by modern Star Trek. I would just say to them, hey, try that first episode. If you don't like it, fair play, but I think you probably will, because it's not the same show that season 1 and 2 were.
No. It is a different beast altogether. So this is the goodbye outside of All Good Things. This is the goodbye to TNG we never, ever thought we would get, like, ever. Like, after all the movies and Kurtzman Trek garbage. I was asked a bunch on my live stream today, do I need to watch it? No. If you haven't watched Kurtzman Trek, you're going to go into this, you're going to be so happy. There's going to be like 2 or 3 references you don't get, and it doesn't matter at all. Just go in, say goodbye to the TNG crew. It is a freaking love letter as much as it can be in the confines of the Kurtzman. Like, it's handcuffed. There are the gripe. We've all talked about it. There's cussing in Star Trek. Fucking hate it. But it doesn't belong there. It belongs on F&T, but not there. And shot a little dark. Some stuff moves a little slow. I was definitely going to say Raffi was one of my criticisms until the payoff happened, and I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to spoil, but there's like some really good payoffs. They undo a couple of really crappy things they did in Star Trek Picard and one they tried. I'll just say they tried. Didn't complete it, but they tried. The other 2, they just straight up did. They just, we're not even going to talk about that anymore. And I'm like, good.
Yeah, there's definitely things like that they couldn't overcome, like Picard being a robot. They can't undo that. Like, everyone hates it. I know. I'm sure Terry Matalis probably hates it as well, but he can't like snap his fingers and undo that. It has to be You know, they work around it as best they can.
The music, like, automatically, that's the thing that sets the tone. Is like, oh,
yep.
What's that? What's that? What do I hear? Star Trek music in the Star Trek show? What a great
the best
idea.
I can liken it. You know when you watch Top Gun Maverick, right, and just the intro and that music just kicks in right in the first few seconds, like boom,
boom, yep,
yeah, and it gets you right away. They knew exactly how to how to play on that stuff, and they did it perfectly. And oh, hi, Robert.
Hi, Robert.
Hello. I was glad I was able to get back here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm greatly honored, and I have to say, first of all, the Critical Drinker and MauLer, you both are 2 of my favorite story analysts on the interwebs. So it's always a pleasure to stream with you. And Dave Cullen, this is like monumental for me. I've been a fan of yours for years. We've been simpatico for a long time, and it's great to be here. And Gary, I have to say, sir, I was very worried. But I was worried.
Me too.
And even Terry had said to me, he goes, I think Gary's going to watch these episodes. And I'm like, you know what I said to him? I said, you are fair and you will tell the truth.
That's all I can do.
And you did.
Yes, I told the truth. I mean, like, damage has been done to a lot of fandom, and I would never, if that's the way you feel, like you're burned, you have every right to feel that way. And it's not just that they made bad Star Trek; they made it in such a bad spirit, and then they went after fans, just like Disney Star Wars did. That's their biggest crime. Making something shitty is making something shitty. That's fine, but going after fans, starting to call them bigots and stuff like that, screw you. And that's Kurtzman Trek, but this is Terry Trek, as a lot of people like that. This is not Kurtzman Trek. This is a different beast, and I wouldn't steer you wrong on that.
I was just saying
go ahead. Sorry, man.
I was just telling people as well how, like, you and Dave are basically the reason that I watched this, because I was completely checked out of Picard. I was completely checked out of modern Star Trek, and, like, as
rightfully so,
the weeks went by, like, because there was few people who were more critical of modern Trek than yourself, and rightly so. And then you started talking about Picard season 3, like, it's great. It's a completely different thing. I can't believe how good it is. And I was like, what is Robert going on about here? And the weeks and months passed by, and you wouldn't stop. And I thought, God damn, like, what
you
is
just
it
won't
about
shut
this
up
show?
about this.
Yeah, and it's like, well, if someone doesn't, like, have that much of a thing going on, unless there's something really special about this. And then, we got to the point where it was available to watch, and I know David got a chance to see it, and he started talking, big things about it, and I thought, okay, fine. Like, I need to take a look at this now. Like, two people that their opinions I very much respect, and I think are extremely fair about things, and who have been very critical of Star Trek, are both praising this thing. It has got to be worth at least watching, and it was. But, like,
everybody
I
here,
think
drinker,
you were
everybody
like
here, drinker is, I believe, is honest. Like, Robert's not going to steer you wrong. Robert's one of the few creatives in Hollywood that understands fandom, like, completely understands it, because he is a fan. So
Yeah.
I will. Robert is telling the truth. The man does not shill. Okay.
Well, it's funny. It's really interesting to me because, like, I've never really been part of the access media, but what people don't understand about when you live and work in Hollywood, it's very easy to get to go to things if you want to. Like, you don't have to, like, because I've worked in Hollywood for such a long time, I know you just know so many people simply because you're still here. And so you get to meet people and go places. I would never sell out my opinion at all, ever. Because I'm incapable of doing it. And I always joke, well, if you pay me enough money, but even then I couldn't shut up. And it's the frustrating thing for me about what's happened to Star Trek is, if you look at the original series, it was essentially an anthology show, kind of like The Twilight Zone, except it had a continuing cast. One week you would get an action-adventure show like A Balance of Terror. One week, or Errand of Mercy, the first Klingon episode. One week you could get a humorous episode like A Piece of the Action or Trouble with Tribbles. One week you could get a romance. Like Conscience of the King, where the girl turns out to be a crazy person that is killing people. So it was all different. Yeah, I know. And it was all different kinds of flavors, but at the time it was being written by some of the greatest fantasists of the time. You had people like Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho. You had Samuel Peoples. You had George Clayton Johnson, who wrote Twilight Zone episodes and co-wrote the novel Logan's Run. And Richard Matheson, who wrote for the Twilight Zone, also another great novelist. He wrote I Am Legend.
I Am Legend.
One of the great, books. That was the book that was the first horror novel I read, and I loved it so much because of Omega Man. So Star Trek had this great writing pedigree. And when I was a kid growing up, it was the three shows that were the triumvirate was Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, and Star Trek. And they led me to read. I was reading science fiction. I joined the science fiction book club when I was 9, 10 years old, and started reading and noticing that the authors that had written these great TV episodes were also novelists, and great novelists. And Star Trek had that writing. I mean, for the first 20 years of its existence, even the animated series brought back some of the writers. So from 1966 to 1987, to the advent of Next Generation, which was my childhood and junior high and high school years, my formative years, and then when Star Trek transitioned to the motion picture, which Drinker, you and I did a stream about.
Yeah.
Star Trek, though, sort of grew and evolved as I did. So it took me from childhood literally to adulthood. And that's why it means so much to me. And they were always sort of stories that had real deep resonance in terms of what does it mean to be a human being? You know, and what does it mean to have friends? And what does it mean to sacrifice and have honor? And all of these things that I think a lot of people get from religion or got from other places. I didn't come from a very religious household, even though I was raised in a Jewish home. It wasn't very religious. So to me, the Talmud was Star Trek, as messed up as that might be. But I think the great works of fantasy literature, I mean, at the same time, that's when I first read Lord of the Rings. You know, you first read The Hobbit and you first read Lord of the Rings. And, you know, all of these writers were writing allegorically about human existence. You know, Tolkien was worried about the industrialization of his beloved England and what would happen, you know, and the Ents being chopped down by Saruman and Isengard. I mean, that was his nightmare scenario. And he put it into fantasy form. And so we were given the gift of all of this great writing in novels and even in television that was written by people that really thought long and hard about what it was they were doing. Because a lot of the time they couldn't directly address these subjects, especially on TV, because standards and practices wouldn't, like, you couldn't talk about the Vietnam War on a TV show on American television in the 60s. But on Star Trek, you can make an episode called The Private Little War, where the Klingons are arming the village people and the Federation has to arm the hill people so they aren't destroyed. Well, no one knew that was about Vietnam because it's a sci-fi show. And there was a lot of great writing. And that is something, the problem with people writing Star Trek now is they're not great writers and they don't have life experience. They've only ever written television and they've only ever watched television. They haven't read books. They have no historical, they've never read classic science fiction. And you can't write science fiction of any kind, especially for the movies or TV, if you have no literary background, because it's a literary genre.
Yeah, you would need like a basis. Like all the writers back then had been to war.
Yeah,
climbed mountains. Were students of mythology. Like that's important for writing, and you're so right, Robert. Like these people haven't left their room, their bedroom, much less. And they're just fans of TV, so it's just meta and pop and irony and pop culture references now, and it's just like, ooh.
Well, I tell you what, like, really pisses me off about modern Star Trek is the idea that the people on board these starships act more like they're in high school.
Oh,
they're given back chat to their superior officers. They just do whatever the fuck they feel like. They have these big emotional outbursts. They disobey orders, just whatever. Like, it's just absolute pandemonium every single week. There's just another person doing stupid shit. Whereas, Picard had that as well. Like the first 2 seasons, nobody seemed to have any respect for Picard. No. It was all about breaking him down as a character.
That the language of the characters was too contemporary. It was like
exactly, People were calling each other dude and stuff. Like,
they were speaking
awful.
Gen Z. What was you remember the was it Daj or Soji? I can't remember which one it was. And they're in an apartment, and the guy's like, "Dude, I totally got it.
Dude, yeah.
You're into Dathstrom right now. Oh my god, your replicator menu is like tragic or whatever." And it's like vocal fry in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to murder myself when I heard that. It's just like, that's not Star Trek in the slightest. But then you get to this, and it's like, the best I can liken it is the first 2 seasons of Picard were like a generic, grim, dark, wannabe edgy sci-fi
vanity
show.
project.
Yeah,
but it was terrible science fiction. Just terrible science fiction.
With a little veneer of Star Trek, like begrudgingly, like stretched over it. This is much more like the heart of it is Star Trek with a little bit of a modern edge, and there's occasional bits of ironic humor and stuff, and it never gets grating. It never comes across as like forced or over the top. Just little nods to like advancing things a little bit. That's the difference. I think the intent behind this is to tell a good Star Trek story.
Characters.
And I
All
fucking
about
love the
characters.
fact that Picard has a spine again. You know, when people are going after him, he bites back. He stands up for himself now, and he defends his position, and he actually calls them out on their bullshit on occasion. It's like, finally, he acts like Picard again. He doesn't just sit there and go, "I'm so sorry. I tried my best." You know, it was just this pathetic old man from the first season. Now he actually acts like an admiral. And I love the fact that Riker's in it again. And Riker, damn, he gets some great
He steals the show, man.
storylines because
Jonathan
he was.
Frakes is great.
I always loved Riker from back in the day, but he always felt like just that underutilized character, because we all know why he was created. He was basically just a backup for Picard. Like if audiences
He's the
didn't
action
take to-
man.
yeah, exactly. He was Kirk 2.0. If audiences hadn't taken to Picard like this old sort of stuffy, bald diplomat guy who's like super cultural and stuff, he was there to take over, basically.
Yeah.
But it never happened. People love Picard. And so he always felt like a guy who didn't have a clearly defined role. This show gives it to him. It gives him great storylines. It gives Jonathan Frakes a chance to actually act, which is something he doesn't often get a chance to do. And he's really good. And I love the fact that he steps in to defend Picard at times. Like, there was a point where 7 of 9 gets kind of lippy with Picard in an early episode. And Riker just steps right in and goes, "You watch your fucking tone, Missy. You're talking to an admiral right now." And I just love that. That never would have happened in the first couple of seasons.
But they've
happens now.
captured Drinker. They've captured the relationship between Picard and Riker. That, to me, that duo really, and because that's what I wanted to see. We didn't get it at all in Nemesis the last time.
No.
Well, okay, we saw them in season 1 together, but finally having them work together, work through issues. I think it's safe to say they command a starship together, overcome problems together. That and the fact that it's not just the relationship that we knew, right, from TNG and the movies, but it also, the way Terry has written it so beautifully, is that he's captured what it would genuinely be like if these two old friends and old experienced officers from back in the day were this much older together, still doing the job. And it's got that sense of absolute balls to the walls. Like, I really do feel like it's the older crew coming back and getting to contribute to this 25th century one last time in a meaningful way. I just think it's beautiful,
It plays a lot with the fact that they are older, and like with age comes not just the fact that like they're a bit old and creaky now, and like they can't do the rough and tumble fighting routine that they used to do back in the day, because there's a few jokes about that, like, I've got bad knees and your hands are stiff with arthritis, so I hope we don't have to do too much shooting and running. But just also the fact that, like, maybe as you get older, you get a little bit more cautious, a little bit more ossified, and more reluctant to go in guns blazing. Because Riker, when he's put in command of a starship, I don't know how much I can even fucking say here, so I'm just, like, winging it. But, like, yeah, he's a much more cautious kind of captain of a starship than you might expect from him. And partly it's because he's had this responsibility suddenly thrust upon him that he didn't expect, and also because he is older, and perhaps as you do get older, you get a bit more conservative and a bit more cautious about things, and he has to work past that. And there's very much this feeling of, like, we're not the young guns that we were 30 years ago, where we were out, like, kicking ass across the galaxy. It's different now, but they're trying to reconnect with that. And rise to the challenge, and I think that's great. Like, it's a great timeless idea in storytelling of, like, the old hero coming out of retirement to take on a new challenge, and this show does it really well.
You know what else, Drinker and Dave, and you guys can speak to this. In, I'll say, the 4th episode, there is a large problem to surmount.
Yes.
And one of the great things that you see is that everybody has a part to play.
Yep.
You get the sense that you're on a ship of people that they're all disciplined, they all are good at their jobs, and they all contribute something to surmount the problem. Even
you mean apart from talking about their feelings and crying?
Exactly.
You know?
And one of the things I always talked about, the thing about Star Trek, it always instilled in me this idea to be the best kind of person I could be. And modern Star Trek, everyone's kind of mediocre. And you can get by on mediocrity. But you can't be on the final frontier in a ship where you're in a life and death situation and you have to know your job and know everyone else's jobs so well that you can work as a team to solve a problem. And I think that it was really refreshing to see in this 4th episode, it's really a triumphant, very Star Trek moment when you see all these people working together to solve this problem. And that's when I really felt like this is the Star Trek that I've missed so much. Watching people come together and
Robert, to your point, sorry, Drinker, you go ahead there.
No, you go first. No, I'll jump in later.
Sorry. To your point on episode 4, without giving anything away, also what was so incredibly refreshing is for the first time, and I can't remember, we have a character admitting to another character about something they shouldn't have done, or resolving something, or reflecting on their choice, reflecting on what they said. And I just thought, finally, we've got some 3-dimensional, self-aware characters who are capable of taking on new information without getting emotional, without getting angry, right? And not taking things personally, and resolving it and then getting back to work like professional military Starfleet officers should, which is the exact opposite of the kind of Starfleet officers we've been getting with all of the snark and all of the attitude on Discovery and everything else, the lack of professionalism. So, that was another high point for me, was finally seeing people act the way they should act.
I really like Shaw as a character.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
Like I can't, that guy's grown on me so much. Like, and just for the people watching, just to give it a little bit of context, I won't give too much away, but basically, like, Riker and Picard need a starship, and he's the captain of that starship, and he's not particularly welcoming towards Picard for reasons that you'll find out later.
Yep.
But I what's so interesting, if this had been Star Trek Discovery, he would be just another incompetent, toxic white male who needs to be put in his place, would crumble at the first sign of trouble, or would just get fucking killed, like straight up killed, and it would be funny. You're meant to laugh at him dying because he deserved it. In this, they actually have the intelligence in the scriptwriting department to say, to reveal him to actually be a pretty competent leader. He makes relatively good decisions in high stress situations, and he eventually proves himself to be a very good engineer, very good at doing the technical stuff. He's a bit quirky, like from a personality point of view. And like I say, he's got issues with Picard particularly, but you'll find out why. There's a reason for everything, and that's the thing. There's nuance. There's depth to characters.
There's a character arc.
There's something there. Yes.
Arc.
Right,
Like in modern Star Trek, there's not only characters, there's an arc with multiple characters.
He's not arbitrarily antagonistic, it's just not like he's not disagreeing with him or becoming. He's not a foil for the sake of being a foil. I mean, Picard or Riker or whoever can have a different opinion or a style of doing things, but Shaw is capable, even though you don't want to go his way necessarily, but he can fully justify, and you can see his perspective on why they should do X, Y, and Z and why they shouldn't do A, B, and C. And that's what I really liked about it.
I love his intro as well, because like I don't know if MauLer you've seen, I don't know if that's in episode 1 or 2, but
it's in one.
When they go to meet him, like they go to meet him in his ready room for dinner because they've been brought aboard his ship, and the first thing you see is he started eating without them, because and it's just a little thing, but it's just that little sign that he's got no fucking respect for them, because it's like, I'm not waiting for you guys, I'm just going to start eating my meal before you get here.
Your reputation preceded you into the room.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
how it
it's such a
started.
good line.
Yeah, and people are, I've seen people complaining to me, "Oh, the writing's terrible." I'm like, "What?" There's so many good lines like that, and as you progress through the show, what's really interesting is the there's an underlying an undercurrent of what we choose to leave behind us and what we end up passing down, and it becomes apparent as you move through the show. And the fact that it even has an overarching theme that they develop very well, I'm like, wow, this is what they used to do on the show. There's actual thematic elements that they keep repeating that also weave in through multiple characters, which I think is really interesting.
I really like Jack as well. I love the actor that's playing him. I think he's charismatic. He's funny. Like he can do kind of everything.
Yeah, he's great. Ed Spaliers is the name of the actor, and he's also on I guess he's the serial killer in the second half of You, the Netflix series You, if you watch that. So it's going to be airing concurrently with Picard. So I think this might be the year of Ed Spaliers because he's really good in the role.
He's great. Yeah, he's got that cockiness, that confidence about him. But when it comes time to give you those scenes where he's a kind of vulnerable or stuff's going down for him, but he can pull that off as well. It's great. He can do basically everything, and I just think the character is great.
Well, by the time I got to the end of the season, I thought, if they allowed it to ever be a straight white male again, I could see him be a fantastic Doctor Who.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Dave, did you watch all of them?
Yeah, I've seen all 10.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because I watched your video. Okay.
Just before we go on any further, I know Gary's got to leave because he has a pressing engagement. He has to go and see Ant-Man, and I hope it's fucking amazing for you, sir.
Dude,
I hope it's better than this.
I do too. I gotta go too later. Not now.
I'd rather sit and talk to you guys, to be honest with you.
Gary, you have my sympathies. You have my sympathies.
I'm sorry, guys, because I really just want to talk about Star Trek Picard.
I just think that in itself, hearing you say that is a huge coup.
I've seen.
When was the last time we got excited about Star Trek?
Oh, you have?
Okay.
Yeah.
After you see it, I really got to talk to you about Modoc. Okay, we got to have a conversation.
Oh no, I'll be going off on. I already know, just what he looks like, and just.
That's not even the worst of it, honestly.
Oh boy, can't wait to miss this to go watch that. I watched the whole thing. I liked it. I thought they stuck the landing. It's got a really great ending. It's got a really, really, really great ending. And it's just a love letter. It's not, like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. They found it again. And they just showed you, and it's a little older, but it's still a nice wheel. So,
nice.
Thanks, Scott. Dave. Let's talk soon. Robert, I'll talk Star Trek. So I'll wrangle you guys up, and we'll.
Oh shit, yeah, I'm always up for talking Star Trek. So
let's do it.
Let me know.
So, but thanks, chat, and I will see you guys later.
Thanks, Gary.
Take care, Gary.
I got to give a shout out to you, Dave. I don't know if you have been following anybody out there watching right now. You have to watch Dave's essential 70s dystopian sci-fi film.
I was just talking to him about that, yeah. When he's doing Rollerball and stuff. And,
Rollerball's a huge favorite
Silent
of mine.
Running.
Silent Running's a huge favorite of mine.
Rollerball's a sports movie, dude.
Yeah. That's all it is.
Robert, can I just say that my sister used to live in Glendale in the late 1990s, and so I
here in California.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so I was on a holiday there to see her in 1999 with my uncle, who's a huge Trek fan, and he at the time, wasn't on the internet or anything, and he just said he had a newspaper, and he said there's this William Shatner, kind of like a fan movie, independent movie, and it's supposed to be really funny. We should go and see it. And so I was very privileged because I know it had a limited run in theaters, and I got to see Free Enterprise, and I've always loved that movie. So it's
wow.
great to finally talk to you.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Hopefully, this is actually will be its 25th anniversary, and hopefully I'll be able to get our executive producer owns the movie, but he has to release it to us if we want to. It's been out of print since 2006.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get it out. I think fans I'd probably get canceled for some of the jokes in it today, but who cares? Yeah, there's one Mia Farrow joke that won't go over well. Somebody even asked me, if you re-released it, would you cut the joke out? I said, no, no, I wouldn't. But thank you. That's very nice. But what's great is those videos that you're doing. You've covered movies that are all favorites of mine. And especially like Rollerball, I think has become more prophetic over the years. People used to think it was kind of silly, but you look at it now, it's basically coming true.
What I love, what I love about that film, in James Caan's character, he's not like a political activist. He doesn't want to make some sort of statement. He just wants to play rollerball for Houston. He just wants to play with his team. And the fact that he's sticking it to the man just happens to be a byproduct. And the whole, to spoil the movie, I suppose if people have seen it, but the whole thing of like this system which governs the whole world and provides for everybody is effectively telling them that it wants people to believe, in order to keep them in that bread and circuses, in order to keep them docile and compliant, that individual effort will never be enough. It's completely irrelevant. And so the whole point of rollerball is, as the only real bread and circuses left, it's consumed all mass media, all sport, right? It's bigger than in the NFL, everything. The whole point of it is it's brutal, and no one person can ascend to being the champion. And you've got this one guy, Jonathan E., who's the undisputed champion. And at the end of the movie, he literally proves that it's possible for one man to do that very thing. And the beautiful aspect of it, because people can look at it and go, what was the point of all of that? The point of it was that it's a clear symbolic message that when this one man actually stands up, he can become a symbol, he can become a martyr, he can become a hero. And that, even though it's a stupid, crazy game, everyone's chanting his name in the end. And thus it could accelerate this or accentuate a rebellious instinct in people, and that creates individuality, and that kind of mindset broadly asseverating into the culture could lead to eventual instability for the elite, and then eventual revolution. And it's very interesting how bread and circuses really works, and it's obviously been used effectively in our culture, I think, even today. But it's a very important movie, I think.
I do too, and it's funny because I grew up watching these films, and they were destroyed after Star Wars came out. All the studios were making, whether it was Omega Man, whether it was Soylent Green, whether it was, there's other movies like British films like The Final Program or No Blade of Grass. There was a lot of great are you going to do A Boy and His Dog?
It's been suggested. A lot of films. Colossus has been suggested as
Colossus
well.
is another one. That's 1970. Yeah. And I think Boy and His Dog 75. That's based on a Harlan Ellison story. A Boy and His Dog is. And then Colossus is based on a novel. Colossus is really pretty good.
Yeah, but, I did Outland as well, which is just this, which I really like the movie. It's a straight up, effectively a space western.
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes. There's no aliens or anything, but it's Connery just being an absolute badass, like in a sort of a Eastwood-esque kind of style.
That's a post Star Wars movie though. That's 81. Yeah, that was.
That's right. Sorry, yeah, 81. Yeah, so that's not the 70s. Yeah.
Do Zardoz, you coward!
You do. You have to do. I was having a conversation. Have you seen Zardoz, Dave?
No, I haven't.
Oh, listen to the drinker when he says, "Don't read anything about it."
Okay.
It's on DVD. It's on Blu-ray. Go get John Borman, who directed Excalibur and Deliverance, directed it. Don't read anything about it. Just go in cold and be amazed.
Yeah, you will never experience a movie quite like Zardoz. That I can guarantee you.
Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling.
Charlotte Rampling, damn.
All right.
But don't read anything about it.
If I may just ever so slightly shift gears back to Picard for a second, because it did occur to me. Yeah. Oh, by the way, just email me any other recommendations for old movies. But where the franchise, without saying anything, where the kind of state that it's left in at the end of this season, because and I get it, like fans want like this reboot, or they want to go back to pre-2009 and it was all a bad dream. It was all alternate universe or whatever. This is unrealistic, I think. I mean, that's like the best case scenario is unlikely to ever really happen. And so the best that you could really hope for, and I certainly after seeing, because I've always been of the belief, like I've always tried to give credit where it's due. Like there was one episode of Discovery I really liked, and I praised it, which was If Memory Serves. And then there was an episode of Strange New Worlds I liked, the one the Gorn story and the Nebula, but the rest I didn't think was so good. I personally am of the belief, and especially with someone like Terry at the helm, and I think it's proved it with season 3, that Star Trek can be reformed as opposed to being reset. And that might be because there's lots of things like, people go on and on, as you know, Robert, about he's a robot, Picard's there is a sufficient lantern.
I tried to address that, by the way, and thank you for pointing out that I addressed it. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you have. But here's the thing. I think, and Drinker, you're going to see later in the season, there is a point where that issue, there's a lantern hung on it, I feel, in a sufficient way that will help people not forgive it maybe, but move past it.
Yes.
I think for me, like, I'm able to just if I don't know if other people can do this, I just kind of forget about it. I just push it to the back of my mind and say that was a decision that was made back in season 1, and like this is a whole different season now with a different creative team, and I'm not going to worry too much about it. Like when I look at Picard on screen, I still see Picard. I don't see like this is just a robotic facsimile of him or whatever,
Isn't there an equivalent in Doctor Who was it the movie where they said the Doctor was human or half human, and then the fans were like, nah, and just moved on, not really thinking about that.
Yes,
I mean, there's a lot of things about that movie that people moved on from.
Because obviously everyone will be curious about what Russell's going to do with the whole timeless children thing, but it's likely it just won't be referenced ever again. And so
I think
enough,
yeah.
Well, here's the frustrating thing that I this is one of the reasons I hated Picard season 1 so much, was there was no understanding of the idea of synths at all, or how they were used or what they were used for. Whereas, and I've said this, I've been beating this drum, but there's an episode from the very first season of the original series called What Are Little Girls Made Of? And there's a scientist, Christine Chappell's fiance, Roger Corby, who has found this technology where he can make immortal android bodies, and you can put your consciousness in them and live forever. And it is shown at the end of that episode. It's horrifying, because in doing that, you've been dehumanized. That you lose that our mortality is what makes us who we are. So throughout Star Trek, they've had android bodies, and Dr. Sung and Next Generation, put that out. So it's been a part of Star Trek for its 57-year lifespan. It's just a main character has never been that way. And then the way they did it was so ham-fisted and stupid, because if they really wanted to do something cool, they would have put Picard into the body of, say, Ed Spaliers and had him be a 25-year-old hero again, and then progressed from there. But they didn't do that. Nobody would why would you take a man who's pushing 90 and put him into an android body that's also 90 that may die at any time? What would,
they didn't.
I think
that idea is the dumbest.
Red Letter Media really nailed this when they were like, well, did they give him a leaky bladder as well?
Yeah.
Did they give him a bad back and stuff?
When you see that, that's terrible science fiction. It's like there's no storytelling that can justify something that dumb.
The best I can liken it to is a movie I've seen called Das Boot, which is Beer Fest. It's called Beer Fest. Das Boot is the ultimate challenge that you have to face in it. But anyway, one of the main characters gets killed early in the show, or in the movie, and then his twin brother shows up, and it's just the same actor, obviously, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm Chad, but for to honor my brother's memory, just call me by his name from now on." And it's literally just a like-for-like replacement, because they're so it's just making fun of the whole twin brother trope in movies and stuff. They're just straight up, we're just gonna have the same actor playing the same character, just bring him in, And that's what I likened it to in Picard season 1. It's like functionally you are just identical to the previous version of Picard. You've just got a synth body now, and it doesn't have any like special requirements or anything like that. You don't have to plug yourself into an outlet or anything every night to charge up. And so if that's the case, like, we can just draw a line under that and forget that you even got changed into this thing. Like, who cares at this point? Like, the writers obviously just want to move past it.
Right. And I, that's the thing that people throw at me all the time. Was Picard still a robot? And I'm like, look, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, there is precedent for this in the series. It's really stupid, but that's where we're at. And look, no one was more critical of that dumb. I thought season 1 of Picard, up until I saw the following season of Discovery, was some of the worst televised science fiction I'd ever watched. And it was like, there have been so many great books that have dealt with artificial intelligence, so many movies, so many things. And it's like, did any of these people watch any of them? Have you watched Blade Runner?
Yeah, the other thing is they focused on Android synths. There was no, despite the fact that there had been precedent with respect to Data in Measure of a Man about Android rights and so forth.
Oh my God!
And that was followed up again with the holographic Doctor on Voyager in an episode was it Arthur at the end, whether he actually had the right to own the intellectual property of this holographic novel that he'd written. So all of this had done. They didn't mention anything about other types of artificial life, like holograms, for example. So
no, because they've never watched any of these shows. They don't know. I mean, it's you look at this stuff, and that's what's so maddening. Like, if take any other walk of life, if you're a doctor or you're a contractor, you're building houses, you have to know what you're doing. If someone's going to be hired to work on Star Trek, I would give them a test, 100-page test on the history of Star Trek, not a trivia contest, but a test about all the themes and various episodes, because there are touchstone episodes, Measure of a Man being one of them. None of the people that write for these modern shows, I mean, Kirsten Beyer, she was marginalized, but she was a novelist. She wrote some quite good Voyager novels, if that's not a misnomer. I mean, or you can't put those two things together, but she did. And yet it's astonishing to me that people are writing Star Trek that don't know anything about Star Trek. So you as a viewer, when you watch these things, I want to put my face through the screen after I've scooped my eyeballs out with a teaspoon, because all of this stuff is readily apparent. And anybody who has, like, why isn't there a Star Trek czar at Paramount that works with production teams to figure out what works and what doesn't? Because they based a whole season of Star Trek on issues that were essentially resolved within the bodies of multiple Star Trek shows. Even in Deep Space Nine, Dr. Bashir finds a civilization of holograms, and really compelling stuff that was dealt with in a far better and more effective way than we saw in the horrible season 1 of Picard.
No,
I mean, and then this Lovecraftian artificial intelligence that's the tentacles, the old ones,
God.
the hentai overlords that live out in the galaxy somewhere. I mean, it's so dumb.
And those first 2 seasons were just a waste. But I tell you what this does, right? It brings up an interesting question for a lot of people about, so the past, really, 14 years of Star Trek have just been an endless series of, vandalizations of the franchise. First the movies, then all the various TV shows, which were varying degrees of terrible. And so what you have now is like a show that's done a 180 and really turned it around. But it's like the 3rd season of one show that's really good, made by people that really care about it. And there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of whom are probably in the chat right now, who are saying, well, fuck Paramount, fuck all these people who have screwed over my favorite franchise. I'm not going to support this because it's made by those people ultimately. Like,
Drinker,
It raises an interesting question about well, how do you tackle that? Because do you just judge this thing on its own merits and support that, or do you recognize that like this is going to ultimately keep that whole era of Star Trek on life support by allowing
Can I
it to
speak to
continue?
that actually? Because you're wearing this Top Gun T-shirt, right? Now, Top Gun Maverick and Star Trek Picard Season 3 were both produced by Paramount. And in fact, Maverick was also produced, there's another studio involved, which was Skydance, which was involved in Star Trek Beyond.
And
Now,
Star Trek 09 and Star Trek Into Darkness.
Right. So here's without sort of belaboring this point, if I said, look, Paramount, because people keep telling us these companies hate you, don't support them, yet people will then praise Top Gun Maverick as an example of that's the kind of movie we want to see out of Paramount, or out of Hollywood. We don't want to see the woke stuff. We don't want to see all that. To which I respond, how much purity spiraling do you actually want to get involved with here?
Yeah.
Every major corporation on the planet does the whole change the logo to the LGBT colors in the summertime, right? They all pander to the usual current year agendas, let's just say. Okay, so they all do that, including the phone manufacturer that you're using to type this message to me right now, including the company that makes the operating system, your laptop, your car, your kitchen appliances, whatever the hell it is, right? What I'd say to this is, people will respond to me and go, well, it's different with Top Gun Maverick because, Tom Cruise's production company was involved and so was Jerry Bruckheimer. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's almost like the personnel involved in the production in Hollywood make the difference. And in this case, I respond to the Engadget article, which said, oh, don't watch this, or just encourage them or whatever. There's a piece in that article, right? And it says, and as for the storyline, what can I say? It's clear that Alex Kurtzman is only comfortable writing in a single register. He doesn't write a single episode of all of season 3.
No.
He's not credited with a single episode. He went upstairs. Akiva Goldsman's gone. Siobhan is gone. Terry Matalas is now the sole primary showrunner so he's made it in essence, despite Secret Hideout still being involved, despite it still being a Paramount production and Paramount distributed, Terry Matalas is basically the Tom Cruise in this situation, is he not? Essentially. He's made the difference.
And what's really interesting is, you bring up, I don't think Alex Kurtzman is a bad guy. I think Alex Kurtzman is somebody that shouldn't be in charge of Star Trek because he doesn't like it very much. And you have to remember, what people don't understand is in Hollywood, when you get a job or you get control of a franchise, you hold on to it because it's very lucrative. And you ride that horse until it falls off a cliff. In my case, or what I believe, is that Star Trek fell off a cliff in 2009 with J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek movie. But Alex Kurtzman, what he was passionate about was he basically did the sequel to Man Who Fell to Earth, Nicholas Roeg's film that's based on the Walter Tevis novel that he did with Chiwetel Ejiofor. So he left to do that because he was more passionate about it. Akiva Goldsman wanted to do Strange New Worlds, so he left and did that. So that left a void. They had to do a third season of Picard, and there was no one left to do it. So Terry Matalas stepped up, and the thing about Terry Matalas is he started his career. He came from Emerson College, wrote a lot of letters, and got himself an internship at DS9 in the post-production department because he loved Star Trek and wanted to be there. Then he became Brandon Braga's assistant. He worked on Voyager. He worked on Enterprise. Then he himself went on and wrote on shows like Nikita, and then became the showrunner of the television adaptation of 12 Monkeys based on a Terry Gilliam's film that's based on Chris Marker's short La Jetée from the 60s, and did a really great job. So he was really the first time that we had a television showrunner that was also a passionate Star Trek fan. And you have to have both. You have to have somebody that really understands the material and also has a love for it. Otherwise, what was that Doctor Who episode that ruined the retcon, the horrible children? What was it called?
Timeless Children.
The Timeless Children. The terrible children. The Village of the Damned Children. That. Yeah, the terrible. First of all, when you see something like that done, to me, that's cultural vandalism.
Well, they kind of
It's-
did it with Discovery when they said
Oh.
Spock was made Spock as we know him by Michael Burnham, right?
And he had a learning
No,
disability as well.
Dave, you have to refer to her by her proper name, which is diverse female space Jesus. Come on, get it right.
Well, I mean, it's you. First of all, this is what I don't understand. So you have a character. Spock is one of the great pop culture creations of the latter half of the 20th century, and what that character meant to so many people. And the crux of that character was he was neither a full Vulcan, neither a full human, but he had to be better than people who were. And he was a man of two worlds, and he had to be the best. He wasn't just a good Vulcan. He was the best Vulcan. He out-Vulcaned Vulcans because he chose to go live with humans. You know, he chose to be on the Enterprise and work with. And when you take that agency away from him, which is what they did in Discovery, they said the reason he was who he is because he had this younger adopted sister that made him the man he was. You destroy the core core of what made that character so beloved. And to me, who are modern creators to even think they can do that? Like, I would have put my foot down and I would have said, you can't do this. And this idea that everybody wants to go reshape these characters that they didn't create, not even from their era, and they want to make them quote unquote better. Where does this kind of thinking even come from?
It's very difficult to actually create anything genuinely unique or meaningful, but it's a whole hell of a lot easier to destroy it.
Ultimately, it's narcissism. It's the same people who think they're gonna take over characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Luke Skywalker or James Kirk with the movie prequel trilogy. It's all just like, we think we can do it better and we have to adapt this to make it suitable for modern audiences, and it's all just their own narcissistic. And I kid you not, my fucking English teacher when I was in high school said this to me, and he's like, it's the height of hubris to think that your generation is the first one to come up with anything, because you didn't. Everyone did it before you, but every next one that comes along thinks that they're hot shit. They're the ones that have come up with the answers to everything. It's just life. But normally in life, that gets tempered by older people who come at you and say, nah, you're an idiot. Stop this. Shut up. Do the work. Earn your ability to make your stamp on things. And that's what has to come from experience and hardship and struggle. Now it's just like, no, you're amazing. Of course, we need to just bend everything to your will because we need to accommodate you because you're the most important thing in the universe. Of course you are. It's just narcissism.
I was going to run an idea by you guys. Cowboys, but in space? What do you think?
Well, Roddenberry did say that Star Trek was wagon train to the stars. That's how he pitched it to the network, because Westerns were the shows at the time. And he had to talk in network exec speak. The thing about
MauLer, were you referring to something like Joss Whedon's Firefly or something?
No, I'm just commenting on the fact that whatever IP you pick as representative of cowboys in space, there was one earlier than that, and earlier than that, and earlier than that. It goes really far back, but it sounds like something almost contemporary to a lot of people. And I was going to say as well, Robert, on your point, I find it fascinating because of the whole, I'm a huge fan since I was super young of Predator and Terminator, two of the most favorite IPs ever. I would never in a million years have entertained the idea that someone was going to come along and say, I'm going to change the entire reason Predators do what they do, and I'm going to erase Terminator 1 and 2 in the timeline in my future, iterations of these. I just feel like, what? How is nobody stopping these people from doing this? That's not even... I never would have thought to tell them, don't do that, because who would ever want to do that? Why would you ever want to... If you love these stories, why would you ever want to change them like that?
Well, you can retcon things without destroying them. You can add to canon, as Star Trek Picard Season 3 does in places, without undermining it or changing it. You can add, and I think it's done that in several places that I can think of now, as well as it giving, actually, this if I continue this sentence, I'm going to give the whole story arc away.
Do it, Dave.
All right. Do you know what? My biggest gripe this season is what they did to Reg Barkley. Absolutely disgraceful. Wood chipper, feet first. Oh my God, Terry, sorry. But no, I just think like the biggest gripe I think I have is the fact that we have people perhaps with limited life experience, like you say, right? Like all of these writers in the 1960s in the original series, some of these guys had fought in wars, right? They'd been through real shit.
They all at World War II.
Yeah.
And
Roddenberry
Korea.
Roddenberry was in World War II, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was shot down and he survived 2 plane crashes.
Damn.
And then he was an LA cop. He was also the speechwriter for the chief of police of Los Angeles.
Wow.
Wow.
Sorry, Dave, you wanna go?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, actually, I agree with Dave. You can, funnily enough, we want retcons when the content is shit. Like the futures that we want you to start. The recent one, I think, is a good example, is everyone, well, this is more adaptation, but everyone wants accuracy for The Last of Us 1, but we want the furthest thing from that when we hit The Last of Us 2. It's like, please, retcon it, do something different, redo it, whatever. And yeah, when you have, Dave, you're familiar with Buffy and Angel, right?
Yo, big fan back in the day, yeah.
So Angel season 4, they do a lot of things that pisses everyone off. Angel season 5 starts to try and repair a lot of things, starts to recontextualize, starts to add on stuff, and it's just like, hey. And there's some meta lines that I'm particularly fond of, where you have characters.
Yeah, and they had in that final season, they had slashed the budget to the bone.
Yeah.
And yet they were able to completely turn it around, which showed you didn't necessarily need all the money. You know, a lot of it's very bottle based. You know, it's a lot of it just takes place inside Wolfram and Hart. There's not much location shooting by comparison to season 4. The effects budget's a little bit, but and similarly to season 3 of Picard, like they shot seasons 2 and 3 concurrently, and season 2 has the lion's share of all of the location shooting. Because there was a lot of stuff done in LA in the second season of Picard. There was a lot of locations, very elaborate stuff as well.
Because I tell you, man, the one thing I want from Star Trek is to shoot in 21st century Los Angeles.
Right, exactly. But this is super expensive. But they actually, you know what? I won't say anymore. But suffice to say, the location shooting in season 3 is thin on the ground.
Well, Dave, you just nailed something that I think Terry, getting to know Terry, he and I are both huge fans of like The Hunt for Red October. Right. We talked about that a lot.
Yes.
I mean, The Hunt for Red October is one of my favorite movies. I mean, John McTiernan, between Predator, Die Hard, and Hunt for Red October, there's a triumvirate that never goes out of style. And the thing about Hunt for Red October and also Picard season 3 is essentially a bottle season. In that, so for those of you who don't know, a bottle show on a TV series is a show that's shot only on the standing sets that exist, because they need to save money, so they'll go out on location and shoot, which is much more expensive. And then they'll do bottle shows, which means the sets they have at the studio, they'll figure out a way to write. So on Star Trek, when they have shows that are set mostly on the bridge or mostly on the sets of the ship, those are called bottle shows. Well, this is essentially a bottle series, all 10 episodes, because it's almost entirely set on spacecraft and places. There are other locations, but for the most part, and that was a genius idea that Terry had, because as a fan, of Hunt for Red October, you're on the Red October, you're on the Dallas, you're on the different places that are enclosed sets, so you don't have to take a crew out onto location, which is very expensive. And he figured out a way to make a ship-based story that's also big and epic and sprawling, and you feel you're watching a really grand narrative that has that starship nautical feel, and yet at the same time you do feel you're going places. And that's how they use the Raffi stuff on Metalis.
Right, and Terry is a big... Like so the one of the first movies that I can remember seeing as a kid was Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock.
Oh, he loves that.
Nice.
He loves that movie, and that's why there's so many sort of nods. You saw that in the first episode. Space dock is a big thing. I love Space dock because that is, to me, visually that illustrates, that just means cinematic, right?
Yeah.
Because you just recall that fantastic scene in the amazing James Horner score from Star Trek 3 when they're stealing the Enterprise and they're getting out of space dock, and then the Excelsior is ramping up to try to catch them, and of course Scotty is sabotage and everything else.
That bit where they have to get the space doors open, I still love that to this day.
Oh, it's the best.
I'm
You
working
see those
on it.
doors. The doors open in the first episode when the Titan leaves. It's the best.
It's great.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Dave. I didn't want to interrupt you there.
No, I lost my train of thought. You're good.
Oh,
Well, no, you said
I
like
was just-
Star Trek 3 Space. You're absolutely right. But you know, to me, that's what Star Trek is. It's a space-based show. And one of the things about Picard seasons 1 and 2 is like, why are they? I mean, I live in Los Angeles. I don't want to watch Star Trek in places. They went up to this. There's a Korean hotel that has an awesome bar on the roof. It's great, and they shot there. And this idea that they have to be elevated in order for their comm system to work, I'm like, really? You didn't go to the highest point in LA. You should go up to the top of the Hollywood Hills on Mulholland Drive.
Did they go to Griffith Observatory again? Like they did on Voyager.
I mean, they should have, but because they did in Voyager, right? But no, it was so. I think what we hate, we now live in a world where there is, because people haven't read science fiction, they don't imagine well, if that makes sense. People's imaginations are stunted because they can only imagine what they've seen rather than reading. Like, there's a great, I think he's Canadian. There's a Canadian science fiction writer named Peter Watts. And I encourage everybody to read this really dark, weird book. It's called Blind Sight. And if you haven't read Blind Sight, there's a lot of science fiction concepts in there that'll blow your mind. And I wish I could give just that one book, or Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos. Just read one, or read Werner Vinge's Fires Upon the Deep. Just read this book. Just read one book before you write any more sci-fi, please. Because the concepts in these books will blow your mind, and you clearly don't have these concepts at all in your head. And it's frustrating to watch people writing science fiction of my favorite franchise that haven't clearly read any science fiction novels at all.
There's two things I wanted to say just before we move on. One was to make a point, and then the other one was just to ask a question of everyone. The first one was I loved in this season, there was so many nods to the Wrath of Khan. There's such a nautical feel to this, like when the characters like board the ship for the first time and you get the like little whistle thing, like the admiral's on board and stuff like that, is straight out of Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. I
by
love
design.
that. They even have the Genesis device referenced at one point, which
I would say
happy like
the disparity between seasons, I suppose, well, I guess 2 and 3, right, is it's night and day. Obviously, we're based primarily now on a Federation ship, but it's a lot like going from Star Trek 5 to 6. Nicholas Meyer really wanted to get back to making it militaristic, like as if the Enterprise is a galleon like
well, the whole ship is more it's much more brisk and businesslike and militaristic. Like the corridors feel very much like the Enterprise from the original movies. The corridors are very bare and everything, and like there's just a bit more emphasis on procedure. If you're leaving space dock for the first time, it's not as simple as just going punch it and then just fucking ramming a lever forward or something.
Or hyperspace skipping.
Yeah, like it's bullshit, But there's
mycelial networks.
Yeah, there's weight to it. Like leaving space dock is just a wondrous thing because it's like you're venturing out into space again to explore the galaxy. It's wondrous. It's exciting. It's amazing. It's like Frodo and Sam going off on their adventure in Lord of the Rings, like moving beyond the Shire. It's just that same feeling of venturing out into the unknown, and this does it.
Yeah,
but the other thing,
Drinker, before you move on, because I haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I'm kind of glad I haven't now. But by all accounts, I pity Gary right now. But I'll bounce in a second. But what do we say? What do you say to people who are still very badly burned by the last few, like 14 years of Star Trek? They cannot believe that we who've gone from just presuming that season 3 was going to be more of the same, that it's a radical change. To me, I would, and of course, there's people saying that even if this is good, by watching it and encouraging people to watch it, it's going to give rise to more Kurtzman Trek. I would be of the mindset that that could happen, but equally, it might be that Alex Kurtzman quite likes having his name attached to something good and will permit Terry Metalis to continue. Who knows? But what I would say to people is life is short. Guys, we're headed for the mother and father of all economic depressions. It's 10 hours of Star Trek. Let people have this. Let them enjoy it. Appreciate what you have in life, whatever it is, whoever's in your life. Just count your blessings, and you live a happier and healthier life if you do. So it's good Star Trek. It is only 10 hours. Enjoy it for what it is.
I think that basically ties in exactly to what I was going to ask all of you guys. So I guess you're kind of asking me to answer my own question, but I'll give it a try. So in this situation, I guess, yeah, I understand that there's going to be a lot of people who just are burned by Star Trek and they don't want to support anything that's made by the current regime. But then the question comes in, well, what if that regime that's there in Star Trek keeps making stuff on par with this? What if they keep making good stuff? At what point do you say, okay, I'm starting to get bought into this again? Because everyone's going to have that point. And I guess for me, taking it on the longer, the wider scale idea of all this, there has to be a way back. For any franchise, there has to be a path to redemption. Because if you just say, you're done now, you're dead, and it doesn't matter what you do from this point onwards, it doesn't matter if you make like a dozen amazing movies in succession or a dozen amazing TV shows, I just hate you now because of what you've done in the past. You're one, doing yourself out of potentially great entertainment that would really move you like these shows used to do, and two, you're not giving them any incentive to do anything better. Then, if you say to them, hey, you've given us this thing which is basically exactly what we wanted. You've listened to the fans' criticisms of the first 2 seasons and you've corrected it and you've fixed the problems and you've given us something good, but we're still going to complain about it anyway and we're still going to hate you. Well, the studio's just going to say, well, fuck you then. Like, if you're not going to get behind anything that we do, even if we're trying our arses off to make something better, why would we even bother? So I think there has to be, at some point, there has to be a way back. Otherwise, what's the point in any of this?
Look,
I don't have an answer for you, but I'm just saying, like, that there has to be something there. There has to be a way for them to redeem themselves.
I mean, here's the thing. Having worked in this industry since 1989, nobody sets out to make something bad. The problem is people don't know what their limitations are. To quote Clint Eastwood from what I think it's the Magnum Force, the second Dirty Harry movie. A man's got to know his limitations. and the thing is, not a lot of people do. And everyone thinks that they can do anything. And the problem is that what's happened to entertainment is all of these franchises are now owned by corporations. They used to be IPs owned by one person. And the corporations aren't in the business of telling stories. And the way it works is corporations look at a spreadsheet and go, okay, we need somebody that was Ivy League educated, that has a business degree. None of these things correlate to whether they're good storytellers or not. But a corporation needs these people. They're the people we're going to hire. Because how do you quantify what a great story is from a corporate standpoint? They don't know. There's no way for them to figure that out. So what they do is they look at a spreadsheet and go, well, this person looks like, sure, let's hire them. And it's really frustrating because the very thing that what corporations want is they want their IPs that they spend a lot of money on to continue to make money. And in this business, I would look at, I mean, I don't think anyone in the history of Hollywood has made a movie like The Rise of Skywalker, which, by the way, I think is one of maybe the worst science fiction film ever made. And you go from
The Last Jedi is the top spot there. Like.
But if you go from The Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker, the earnings dropped $1 billion.
Yep.
$1 billion. And now, if you look at it from a corporate standpoint, you have to wonder, well, how did that happen? And they won't blame the creator. They'll make up all kinds of analytics and marketing reasons. No, the fact is that The Rise of Skywalker is probably the greatest betrayal of an audience that's ever been perpetrated in the history of the entertainment business. And what I heard from an executive, ironically, was the term fraudulent creator that I can't get away from. And the Disney trilogy, the Star Wars Skywalker trilogy, is the product of fraudulent creation, meaning that the people that of course they're going to take that job. But let me ask you this: why does C-3PO have a red arm? Why does the Millennium Falcon have a rectangular dish instead of a circular dish?
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, because somebody wanted to make money.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we should do is that great storytelling is what makes money. It was great storytellers that created these IPs, whether it's Back to the Future, Predator, Alien, Star Wars, Star Trek. It was great storytellers that laid the foundation of IPs that made money. And if you're going to hire people that are the fashion du jour, or they hook up with your whatever college degree you want them to have, that way is you're never gonna. I mean, these IPs are being destroyed and vandalized and devalued, and the companies don't even realize that by the creators they're choosing to give the franchises to. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch, because the people that should have them, and Terry Matalas was able to sneak in because no one wanted. He got in there and did the work, put in the time, hired his people, hired his composer.
What's the potential for him doing more? You know, like, obviously Picard has reached the end of that storyline. Like, he only had 3 seasons, but like, can Terry get involved in other shows?
He's working on something else right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's working on, for Disney, he was working on the Escape to Witch Mountain reboot. But he does have a contract with CBS and Paramount through next October. But here's the thing. You know, he comes in and does all this great work. Right now, on Rotten Tomatoes, Star Trek Picard, from a critical standpoint, is at 100%. How do you think that makes Alex Kurtzman feel?
Well, not necessarily bad, Robert.
I would hope not, because he hired him.
He's an executive producer, so he's still got his name on this thing.
Exactly, and that actually might be one opportunity. But like I say, even if it doesn't, I mean, it's as it is, right? Even if we don't get any Star Trek at this level for a while again, it is I'm actually kind of glad it's the 3rd season, because it happens to be a great conclusion to tie up the next generation in a way that we didn't get from Nemesis. Yeah. So we get that at the bare minimum. Like, I really hope they don't bring the TNG cast back ever again. Like, I think Patrick Stewart did a decent job. The guy's 80 years old now. They're way older than the original series cast were in Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country in 1991, right? So it is time to... Now, some of them could come back individually, perhaps, or 1 or 2. But Patrick Stewart, look, the power is gone out of the guy's voice at this stage, right?
Yeah.
He's a little bit frail at times. Like, I'm going to say frail is the wrong word. Like, he puts this season over perfectly, right? For his age at 80, it's impressive, right? And I'm very happy. From 1 to 10, he's great, right? But there's no more. I don't think there's anything left in the tank, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's time to hang it up.
No, I think for him, like, I just wish that Matalas had been in charge from season 1. Because imagine if we got 3 seasons of this. Because, you know, the hope was always that Star Trek Picard was going to be the thing that really turned Star Trek around. And so it came along, and the first season was absolute garbage, and everyone like trashed it. And it compounded the problems that were already beset in Star Trek. And it's such a shame because now you're on the third season of an unpopular show. Like, damn, as much as we're here, like singing its praises, like, god damn, there's only so much we can do as a bunch of creators. Like, it not necessarily going to save the show, and it gives me the same sort of vibe as Andor with Star Wars, where you finally had a good show coming out in Star Wars that like actually had a bit of intelligence behind it, and it was made by people who clearly wanted to tell an interesting story and cared about the lore that they were working with. But it was buried beneath this mountain of bullshit. It was buried beneath Obi-Wan Kenobi and Boba Fett and The Mandalorian.
Drinker, like the original series was not appreciated at the time. In fact, it was put on a death slot in its final season.
Yeah.
It was Friday nights or whatever. It wasn't until the 70s, like several years later, when it was found in syndication. And I said this to Terry. I honestly think that like, I'm sure he doesn't want to hear it. I'm sure he wants it to be a success right away because he wants to continue to do more Star Trek. But if his legacy happens to be that in a few years' time, the love comes later and people appreciate it a few years down the line, well, that might be the case.
I just think I would rather have 3 great seasons than 2 shit seasons and 1 good one.
But again, they had to appease. I mean, to get Patrick Stewart to do it, they had to give him. I mean,
that was their biggest mistake.
Yeah, they had to give him
control.
And you look at, here's another thing that as a Star Trek fan, I look at the idea of mental health. For instance, that was a big part of Picard season 2. Picard's mother, who's mentally ill, kills herself. Star Trek, again, in the very first season of the original series in 1966. There's an episode called Dagger of the Mind where they go to a sanitarium, and Dr. Simon Van Gelder, and then it was repeated in Whom Gods Destroy in the 3rd season. In Star Trek, they had places where the mentally ill were cured. And in Picard season 2, Patrick Stewart wanted to delve into his own life and transpose, maybe not that his mother hung himself, but the abusive childhood he had. But in the 23rd century, 24th and now 25th century, those things are alleviated. We don't have that. That's why people love Star Trek, is that those problems are surmounted. People get the help they need. And so to turn it into your personal soapbox about your own life is not exactly great Star Trek. It might be good for you to exercise your demons, but from a narrative standpoint, and this is the problem with modern Star Trek, it's an allegorical show. You need to figure out, if you're going to deal with modern issues, put them in a science fiction context. Give us something that's interesting.
Their strategy was like, we're going to take the story back to like the early 21st century, and we're just going to literally set it in the here and now. And we're going to use that as our opportunity to critique everything that's going on right now. Like, I remember Red Letter Media covering this. It's like, whoever wrote season 2 really fucking hated ICE. ICE, like the immigrations and fucking enforcement thing. And it's like, okay, fine, you can criticize that as much as you want, but God, you could at least cloak it in some kind of like, narrative framing or something. It's like, no, we're just going to straight up set it right in the here and now. Like, that is so lazy. It's so clumsy. It's so shit.
How about the fact that Guinan's an Illyrian? She's not even a human being, and yet she talks about racism as if she's somebody that's alive now. And I'm like, you've been
that's
on
like
Earth.
That's Whoopi Goldberg. It's just like, I'm on the View as well.
You've been on Earth for over 150 years. You presumably watched America, if you've been in America, because we saw her in San Francisco. You've been in America for 150 years as an alien, as an Illyrian, and we're listeners. You've been listening to human civilization evolve. Is it working? I mean, she talks like she's some modern woman when she's actually watched. She was there with Mark Twain. She's seen the people that wrote those episodes with her didn't know that. I mean, not that Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2 are great episodes of TNG, but she's been on Earth for 150 years from the end of the the antebellum South through Civil War to Reconstruction to where she's at now in modern
Yeah,
Los
like
Angeles.
someone like that is going to have such a much more enormous frame of reference.
Oh my
like, they're
God.
not going to see things like the way that we do.
No, and there was none of that. I was really expecting her. When you meet her, she's basically a woman of today, you know, with a sawed-off shotgun behind the bar. And I was like, wow, what a disservice you did to this character of Guinan. You've decided to say that Guinan's been on Earth for 150 years, which is cool. She's learned nothing and she's become a person of today. This is a failure of speculative fiction writing.
With no memory of Picard from Time's Arrow whatsoever. Like, it's just no continuity tie. You're right. They just haven't watched the show.
No, they don't know. They don't.
I love this.
They don't know.
She witnessed Jennifer Lawrence inspiring Rosa Parks. Jennifer Lawrence invented everything.
I
Yeah,
have a question for all of you. Don't want to interrupt, but I'm just curious on the question of like reception and how to deal with how to push any company in any direction through response as a viewer. If you knew for a fact that for what remains of Star Trek, it will be terrible going forward, created by people who don't care, created by people who don't know it, and no matter what you say about this season having released, there's just no positive effect you're going to get from praising it or supporting it, would you still do it?
For this season?
What, this season?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say, look, it's one last good season. I mean, look, to be perfectly honest, Mono, I was past Star Trek anyway. I mean, we had, from as far as I'm concerned, 39 years, 1966, 2005-ish. We'd many good seasons, some good movies, and I was like, I'm happy enough with that, really. And then it came back. I think it should have remained, retired. It came back in 2009. Okay, gave it a chance. Didn't like those movies. Then we had Discovery, and we're in this situation now. I'm personally, as much as I am happy to promote this season and tell people and hardcore fans to go and appreciate it, Star Trek probably does need to be put out to pasture. We need new franchises. We need new ideas. We need new science fiction. It isn't as much as we're very passionate about it, and we want people to appreciate the season as well, because I think they'll enjoy it genuinely. We're talking about a franchise that's over 50 years old. Its creator is long dead. It's probably time to, say, look, maybe this thing should be coming to an end anyway,
With every degree of respect, like, I disagree on that one. I firmly believe, like, if you've got the right people working on this, the people who genuinely care, not just about the history of this franchise and like where it was in the past, but also what it represents and where it could potentially go. I think the possibilities for storytelling are unlimited with Star Trek. That was always the purpose behind it. That's what's kept it going for 30, 40 years. Through all the different seasons, through all the different movies, you've got almost unlimited potential to go to any planet, explore any culture, deal with any moral issue that you ever could imagine wanting to do. All you need is a vehicle in which to do it. A crew of interesting characters going out on an adventure across the universe. That's all it takes. And then you've got your perfect staging ground to explore anything that you want. The limitation is your own imagination. It can absolutely be done. It just has to have people that care about it, that want to tell good stories and have the ability to do it. That's what has been missing for so many years, because we've had hacks like J.J. Abrams coming in and just bringing in their fucking mystery boxes and their revenge plots and their doomsday devices into things and fucking up the movies. And you've had idiots like Alex Kurtzman who just wanted to like retcon everything and give you your platform for the message. They were the wrong people to be doing this work, but if you get the right people involved, you can do basically anything. That's what I want to see with Star Trek. That's what I think the potential is there.
Dude, here. I mean, remember, like I said, I grew up with Star Trek, and Star Trek, when I was growing up, the characters aged. I watched Kirk and Spock and McCoy and Scotty and Uhura move into middle age, and I saw how that changed them. I mean, literally, if you think about Shatner, he played Kirk from 1966 to 1994, and they incorporated his own life, his own aging into that. the thing about Star Trek is they've made sure, Roddenberry made sure this in 87, Next Generation took place 100 years later. The Star Trek franchise, more than any other franchise, I think, has the flexibility to move forward and tell allegorical. Remember, it's a science fiction action adventure series that's also allegorical in nature. It's all about us today. But you don't have, as they had in Star Trek Discovery, in the 31st century, you don't have one character who's non-binary telling a gay man how to use her or their pronouns. You don't do that. They did that. It's 1,000 years in the future. Humanity is going to be, we have interspecies marriages. Spock, his parents are interspecies. And that was in the 60s. And now we're so limited, we're so immersed in our own ridiculous politics now that we've reduced 1,000 years into the future to the same political discussion we're having right now.
Well, look,
That's
Here's a question for you, Rob, because what was progressive and revolutionary back in the 1960s was the idea of you had your first interracial kiss on screen in Star Trek.
Yep.
The idea of we've moved beyond the idea of race or gender or whatever being a limiting factor in what you can do with your life. It was very much an egalitarian society where it was just that you were limited by your own potential as a human being. All that great stuff. Do you ever reach a point where it's okay, we've progressed as a society to the point where everything's permissible now, and so there's no further thing that you can drive towards in your science fiction? We're kind of there already. And so do you reach that point where it's well, we can't do that anymore with something like Star Trek, where we're not going to portray a utopian future where everything is possible, where everything is allowed, because we're kind of there already as a society.
But here's the thing. What does it mean to be transhuman? What does it mean to so if we create, for instance, nanotechnology that we can swallow a pill and repair our cells, right? And say we can live, the human lifespan can be, the only way we're going to change human life now is to continue to expand our lifespans, whatever. What if we could live to be 200, 300, 400 years? What if we could incorporate Borg technology, benign Borg technology, into our own bodies and live 300, 400, 500 years? How would that change our experience of existence? If you could live to be 500, and by the way, going into the 31st century as Star Trek did, we should have been there. They should have envisioned a future where human beings are living to be 500, 600, 700 years old, because that way they can examine a whole different, what does it mean if you had a 700-year lifespan? Let's just assume that.
Altered Carbon played on this.
Yeah.
What
exactly.
happens if you've got a family unit where your children are 500 years old or something because they just keep downloading into new bodies? What does that do to their mentality?
That's what Star Trek, that's where it should go. And what you need is visionary writers and this is not a bad thing. But here's what the real problem that I have with Star Trek is that they've never envisioned, the technological future is still mired in the 60s. The future of the 1960s is still looming large over Star Trek. What Star Trek is able to do, I think, at its best, is to comment on where we are today. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, what happens? And other science fiction shows have surpassed us in terms of answering or addressing those questions. And what Star Trek is able to do is, as Star Trek progresses into the future, it should address these issues. I mean, you call in futurists and say, okay, where are we going to be in 500 years? How many Star Trek plots could you get from one afternoon with 5 scientists from the greatest universities in the world, and ask them, where are we going to be in 500 years? There's 10 seasons of stories for Star Trek. But instead, we get a future which is essentially oh, we've run out of dilithium. We watched Mad Max. And it's like, what if there was a fuel shortage?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the greatest failures of imagination, and to have it happen in Star Trek is unconscionable. That 31st century future in Star Trek is one of the most egregious failures of imagination I have ever seen in pop culture entertainment. It is horrific.
But that's the kind of stuff that's going to color people's perception of Picard season 3, and that's the shame of it. That like they're worlds apart in terms of like the work and thought and creative talent that went into them, but like people just merged them all into the one idea in their head, but it's all Star Trek, and that all that other stuff that we got was shit, and so they're going to avoid season 3 of Picard, and it's so it's such a shame because they're going to miss out on good writing.
But why are people doing that? Like, look, it's fiction. Who cares? If you get 10 episodes of something really interesting, why not watch it? Like, what's the harm in it?
I mean, I agree, and that's why, particularly as reviewers, like all of us here, we review media, and so it's our job, I guess, to keep an open mind about all of this stuff and give it a chance. But then the average viewer is just going to say, well, I used to care about this thing, then it became shit for like 10, 15 years straight. At a certain point, like, I have to cut my emotional ties to this thing because otherwise I'm just going to keep torturing myself. It's like with Star Wars. You know, I think we've all reached that point with Star Wars where we used to care about it back in the George Lucas days. You know, we saw the prequel trilogy. It's pretty shit, but, you know, fair enough. Then Disney brought it over and we got just a relentless cavalcade of garbage, and it's only accelerated over the past few years. And at a certain point, as a person, you kind of have to cut your emotional ties to it because otherwise you're just going to spiral into some kind of depression, I think. Like,
you know, it's funny. The Red Letter Media videos about the prequel trilogy and MauLer's videos that he's made about everything else Star Wars should be, you could base a college course on those videos. I mean, MauLer's examination and deconstruction and evisceration of where Star Wars is at, I think, are essential viewing for anyone who wants to understand great storytelling. Because
I really appreciate that, by the way. You're very kind.
No. It's no, but look, man, I didn't make those videos. How long did you spend considering them and making them? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, and when you watch your videos, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, someone cared enough to put this much time and effort into explaining why this one. You start out with the presumption that Star Wars is important. Changed my life. I saw it the opening weekend that it came out in 1977. I was 10 years old. I saw it on the Sunday that it opened. And I'll tell you something. No one understands now that the world was changed in terms of pop culture by Star Wars. Because if you look at cinema history up to 1977, there was nothing even close to Star Wars. Nothing. There's no cinema. I mean, people go, well, you know, there's all these. No, there was nothing. There was nothing even remotely similar. And the thing that I remember the most, the thing that sticks with me because the movie was such a joyous experience, was I sat in a movie theater and I heard this sound. It was an entire theater of people reading the opening crawl to themselves. I'd never heard that sound before. You know, 1,500 people not even realizing that they're not reading in their minds, they're reading out loud. And you hear this the entire theater. It was like people were hypnotized. We were all pod people. The effect that Star Wars had on pop culture cannot be understood now. And I'm not saying, well, you had to be there back in the day. But the fact that there was nothing like that has been forgotten. And now it's just, more grist for the mill.
I want to make sure it's said on behalf of you, by the way, Robert. You may have not wanted to word it earlier as it's fiction, who cares? Because anybody might try and clip you out or ignore the context surrounding that, I just want to say Robin Meyer Burnett clearly fucking cares about fiction. All right, look at the background. It's like I don't want people misconstruing what you mean by that. It's a very
thank you.
statement.
Fiction defines us. What is all of fiction but people trying to tell stories that contextualize the human experience?
Yes.
That's what fiction is. And fiction, you know what? The best fiction is truthful.
Well, look
Bad
at the power
fiction
that it
has no truth.
Look at the power that it has over people. It has the power to move people to tears, to motivate them, to inspire them to reach for greater goals. Like, that's the power of fiction. The stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's beautiful, and like when it's done well, when it's done with heart and conviction, it's an incredible thing to witness. And I think the reason we get so passionate about it is because when we see it done a disservice by people who don't care about it, particularly people who inherit the work of previous generations that was slaved over and built with such love, and then it's just torn down brick by people who don't care about it. That's the thing that's hard to accept. Whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, whatever, it's happened in so many different things over the past 10 years. And we look at it like that and we call it out because it needs to be done. But then you get things like this, like what we've been talking about for the past almost 2 hours, Star Trek Picard. When they start to put it right, I think you need to call that out too, because it's worth recognition. It's worth it recognizing the work that went into it, and the intent behind it. And when they've done a good job, give them credit for it.
Yeah, I think when people finish Star Trek Picard season 3, they'll see that there was a lot of thought and a lot of love put behind every aspect of the show, and at the end of the day, the messaging there and what the show is really talking about is, it's not just edgy, but it's also uplifting at the same time. And we've forgotten, remember, Star Trek is an aspirational franchise. Ultimately, it is a franchise that talks about how humanity can be the best it can be. We've forgotten that message. We've forgotten that all of our great fiction, whether you're talking about John McClane, the first Die Hard is, in my mind, one of the great movies of all time, because it's a movie that is, I mean, you could say, okay, he's a cop, but it really is about an everyman. All he wants to do is get back together with his kids and his wife, and he finds himself in an extraordinary situation and steps up. We are all John McClane, aren't we? Isn't that what Die Hard's about? Isn't that, or at least we want to believe that. And
I've never gone flying off a skyscraper and like smashed through a glass window and stuff.
Perhaps not, but that's the escape-ism of it all.
Yeah,
and
no, I get you. I get you.
Yeah,
I got a few more of these in the tank. Yeah, we're jumping off a building.
The draw of like a human experience, right, and nature and stuff. It's funny because the Super Chat's just come in saying Puss in Boots 2 is the most human movie I've seen in a while. I would be inclined to agree.
I've got to see that. I've genuinely got to see it.
Well, and we've come back to this a lot of times, right? It's like you have to have particular, sexualities or races on screen. Otherwise, how are you going to be able to, feel and stuff? Particularly, it's like, no. The cat movie, okay? Like the cat got to me. It's like,
if you can identify with that, take something like WALL-E. Like he's a fucking trash compacting robot that doesn't speak, but it's like you can identify with his situation. And you get behind him. Like
one of the most underrated animated movies that did horribly in the box office was The Iron Giant.
Oh my God,
classic!
What a great movie!
And what a deeply heartfelt movie. What a heroic story for like this entirely anthropomorphized machine that you actually genuinely feel something for. And I mean, at the end when he flies, the last thing he says before he goes and tries to destroy the asteroid or the missile that's coming down, when he says Superman, I genuinely welled up at that moment. It's a really great movie. It's well animated as well.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question for the three of you. Are you optimistic about? I mean, look, corporately held fiction, Hollywood movies, TV shows, books, comics. Are you gentlemen optimistic about the next 10 years, the next decade of fiction?
I think, yeah, taking it in that long term, like 10 years scale, probably yes. I think next year or two, no. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
We seem to have been in an unprecedented valley for quality of storytelling. And I don't want to say, I was about to say as of recently, it's like, I don't know if we're in the middle of it or if we're coming to the end of it. I don't think we're at the beginning of it, though. I feel like we're moving out, if anything. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but just I'm really hoping that capitalism kicks in and that the desire to make money and therefore make better art actually gets us going again. The news that Disney is bleeding, so to speak, could actually be the first steps toward them being like, wait a minute. I think I was talking to a friend about this. I think the first thing we'll see is obviously Tony Stark coming back, Robert Downey Jr. in one of those newer Avengers movies. He'll be plastered all over the marketing, and then it'll be like, so they're crawling back now. And then they're going to start being like, shit, what stories do we actually tell? What do people care about? It's like, I don't know. They're going to be a bit lost. I really need to see how James Gunn's DC is going to go as well. That'll give us a good idea of... There's so much information to collect, but I think I'm with Drinker on that. I think we've still got a decent chunk of bad projects to come, but overall, I'm hoping that we start heading up again.
Dave?
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, season 3 of Picard might be the beginning. You know, there could be a few false starts along the way, right? But it could be the beginning of righting the ship for Star Trek, certainly. 10 years, yeah, I think we're in a cycle. But we're also in a period, well, in terms of creativity and a creative drought, right? I think it's just inevitable, right? The sheer amount of content. But I also think that we're in this experiment of woke and agenda-driven entertainment, which is burning out very quickly, and it's been called out far quicker than it was a few years ago because people are noticing it, and it's so intrusive. It's getting in the way of entertainment and storytelling. So, I think so, but I just don't want to focus primarily on what you mentioned there, Robert, about corporate entertainment from the Hollywood machine, because there's so many other places. There's people on YouTube making independent films. You know, there's
absolutely. I was just speaking because that, is the general law. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think we live in a world where content creation, the power. I mean, iPhones have incredibly sophisticated, or whatever phone you have, has incredibly sophisticated cameras in them, and like you just said, we're going to get content creation all over the place. Francis Coppola said once that he thought the next Citizen Kane was going to be made by like a 13-year-old girl in her basement. Now, maybe he was a little too soon for that, but now we're getting content creators making things the world over.
Well, Robert, actually, on that point, I think we're going to probably see a spanner in the works in that regard, because AI is going to play a role that I can't fully predict. So there's a lot of, whether it's artists, paintings, drawings, whatever, whether it's voiceover work. So at the moment, voiceover actors and artists they're able to use the technology to their own benefit right now. So when they go to they're effectively the middleman, or even musicians too, right? They're the middleman to the client. But eventually the client is going to go direct to the AI for the content they want, and it's just going to do away with the artist in whatever industry they work in. This is a big concern, is how game-changing this is going to cause a massive disruption. So I don't know. I'm not thrilled about that. AI art is impressive. Obviously, some of it is downright satanic when you see it.
Some of it's terrifying. Yeah,
it's absolutely terrifying, but fascinating at the same time. That's another thing to consider, I think.
I think as well, I'm not entirely convinced that Marvel movies aren't just written by an AI to begin with anyway, and they're just polished up a little bit by actual human beings. But there's also that idea of, well, are actors just going to eventually get to the point where they just license their likeness and their voices in order to be
It's
put
already
into
happening.
movies? Yeah. And so, like, they just record a few lines, to get some, like, a baseline of what their voice sounds like, saying certain words and stuff, and then the rest is just extrapolated.
Dude, that re-speecher for Vader and Kenobi, it was the audio equivalent of looking at a zombie. I was like,
Well,
I know
you
something's
said it.
wrong. Like,
Yeah, you raised a really valid point of, like, just those little inflections that a real human would put into their voice for certain scenes, like, because they understand the context and the nuance that goes into
yeah.
scenes and, like, what you want to convey to the audience. Like, obviously a machine doesn't get that, and so you get this weirdly flat, just monotone interpretation of whatever's going on.
Oh,
It's like you can see the difference. It's just that uncanny valley of
Yeah, it's
weirdness.
the audio uncanny valley. Because when you saw him in Rogue One, you were like, all right, I can tell it's him. It's just he's getting on a bit, and it's hard to pull off the power of Vader when you're that old. I get it, but it's still, yeah. When I heard him in Kenobi, I was like, wait, what is that? That's not.
Yeah.
What's happening? And it's like worrying. Like you're literally like, whoa.
Well,
But the thing is, like, we're of the generation that, like, we've seen the original and we know what we're comparing it to. But, like, the people that are kids now, they're going to grow up not having that reference point, and they might just see it like, well, that's just what voices sound like. Cool. Okay.
Well, I think what's really interesting. The Star Trek franchise allowed their like Shatner died in '94. Captain James T. or Admiral James T. Kirk died in '94. He went from 1966 to 1994 and passed away. Leonard
But the
Nimoy
Daystrom Institute has still got his bones.
But yes, which is a great reference to a Star Trek novel called The Return. But the in real life, so what are we going to do? Are we as an audience going to allow the AI? I mean, everyone loved Luke Skywalker showing up, even though we knew that, that was a CG altered Mark Hamill, whatever it is. I know, well, but I don't think we should allow it. I think I think that we should figure out a way as storytellers that if a beloved actor ages out, I have no interest at all in watching a total CG creation go through the paces of a character that a real human being created. I don't want to.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I would rather they just recast it, move the story along, whatever it is you need to do. I don't want to see these movies that are basically just fucking video game cutscenes because you've got a CGI animated character with a computer generated voice approximation.
But it's going to
of the
happen.
original actor.
Drinker, it's going to happen. There's going to be a situation where a famous actor will die and his wife, family, whatever, will have the license agreement with the studio to go, yeah, no problem. We're going to allow his likeness to be used in AI and whatever.
It may happen. It may happen. I would wish it wouldn't, because I don't want to take that human factor out of movie making and storytelling.
And I think, look, choose a hill to die on. Choose your. My life has been in service of storytelling or entertainment. My issues are those that affect that. And I think one of the greatest issues we are facing is the fact that human beings can be completely replaced by AI. I will say this. I don't want to live in a world where I watch a movie where the entire cast is artificially created and their voices are recreated. The whole point of watching movies is that there's real people.
Well, you could reach that point where you've got CGI character models using CGI voices of original actors reciting a computer generated script from a chat AI.
Yeah, and you're now watching. Might as well be a comic book.
Well, what you've got then is the modern day equivalent of Prol Feed from 1984 from George Orwell.
Yes, exactly.
That's all you've got. It's just like generated by machines to satiate the masses. And like, where's the humanity? Where's the artistic endeavor? Where's the attempt to like bring forth some like truth about human existence if it's written by an actual machine. That's
If I could,
horrifying.
Robert, is it better or worse if you can't tell?
Well,
It's terrifying.
okay. I think it's terrifying. I think that ultimately one of the concerns that we have to ask ourselves, there's two books by a Israeli historian named Yuval Harari, and he wrote a book called Sapiens, and he followed that up with Homo Deus. And Sapiens is about the last 100,000 years of human history.
This guy is terrifying, by the way. Yuval Noah Harari, the guy who says that human beings are hackable animals and that we have no soul or free will. In
Terrifying.
The future.
Totally terrifying.
Yeah.
Hey, you're ginger. Count yourself in the no soul
But
group.
Hold on. You've got soul privilege, sir. So check your
But
privilege.
at the end of his first book, at the end of Sapiens, he asks the question, what do we as a race, and there is one race on this planet, the human race. Well, there's other animals and all that, but the human race is one race. He asks the question, what do we want to be? What do we want to be? And as a race, and Homo Deus is the book he asks after, and then he gets into what Dave said, the crazy stuff, which, by the way, we're going to also have to ask ourselves. And for me, I know what I want storytelling to always be is I want other human beings, through the stories they write or convey, however they do it, I want there to be a truth about human existence, at least from their perspective, reflected back. If I read a book or watch a movie or play a video game, whatever narrative I experience, I want it to come from another human being or a group of human beings that illuminate the experience of what it means to be human. And if we lose that in our narrative, it'd be like AI making cave paintings. I mean, I don't want that. What I want, and I really believe the currency of the 21st century is going to be our authenticity. Whether people like you or not, are you authentic to yourself? Give me yourself. Even if you're a distasteful human being, I would rather get your experience of the world than some AI artificially generated BS. Give me your authentic self.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm not going to name names, okay? But there are just YouTubers that come across as AI these days in terms of how they deliver their opinions, quote unquote. Yeah, like, because this is the thing, we've all gotten in trouble for our opinions, and to me, that's a signal. It's like, yeah, so you're still being honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we want. I think authenticity is going to be the great currency of the latter half of the 21st century. I really do.
I very much agree. Well, I mean, look at all of our respective channels. Like, we've grown to the degree we have because that's what people gravitate towards. You know, we're not like super polished or like, you know, we're not sitting in newsrooms with all these great like production values around us, but it's like we're people who care about the things we talk about, and we give our unvarnished opinions about these things. You know, whether it might ultimately piss some people off or whatever, like we're just people.
Well,
we're human beings telling other people what we think about stuff.
You've talked about where we're headed to and where this technology is going to take us, potentially into a very dystopian movie. You know, if we get it wrong,
right.
which is that we are going to have a very difficult time trusting what we see and hear, especially with AI. Right? If they can fake the president giving a pitch perfect speech that passes the uncanny valley, and he's declaring war, and it's all fake, whatever, or they just get enough material, sort of like that episode of Black Mirror, so where she brings her boyfriend back to life using extrapolating on social media content, right? So you've got enough content, video, audio, photographs of a person. You've all of this material, and the AI is then able to basically rebuild you so that you can effectively have a phone call with a dead person, but it's obviously not really them; it's just a machine. If you cannot tell the difference, we've made effectively a Faustian bargain here. With the technology that is so pervasive in our lives. Perhaps, I mean, it's facilitating this conversation between the four of us. We're all in different countries and everything. It's wonderful. Yeah. However, and we can reach so many people, right? So there's a double-edged sword. But ultimately, like this AI thing is going to lead to a crisis. And without getting political, there are plans to address this crisis with digital IDs for everybody, right? Which will also be able to govern and control everything that we can do and where we can go. But ultimately, I think that in the long run, and I'm not talking about in our lifetime, maybe not even our children's lifetime, but eventually mankind is probably going to have to regress technologically in order to be human. Because in order to, I disagree with Robert. I do not believe that transhumanism is the future. I believe transhumanism is enslavement. It's not like we're going to become like cyborgs that will live forever and we become Superman. No, we'll just become, we'll effectively just become branded, tagged,
thinking of the Wall-E
tackled.
people?
Well,
With
here's the
all
question:
of this
will
technology
we
to
become
surveillance.
outmoded?
Well,
what you're-
we could become replaced, right? We could become entirely
Well, are we ultimately going to become too slow, too fucking stupid, too uncreative for machines to be able to like even
Well,
relate to?
now you're talking about the Butlerian Jihad in Dune.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
Which led to the mentats, the human computers. And by the way, I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, there are two schools of thought about. I was watching a YouTube video where the idea that why haven't we discovered a extraterrestrial intelligence? There's the Fermi paradox. There's the Drake equation. There's the idea that it would be because interstellar travel is so vast that a living being of flesh and blood can't do that. So we'd create AI that would do that. And I was watching this video that said that what if there's already been an AI extraterrestrial incursion or visit here? And because we have the internet now, that there's an extraterrestrial intelligence within our internet, our global internet systems, that when we reach a certain level of sophistication, this AI that's already here gathering data on us will make contact with our own AIs or whatever, our own internet, and reveal itself. That we could have already been invaded by some kind of a digital force that's just waiting for us, not a malevolent necessarily force, could be benevolent, doesn't matter, but they're just waiting for us to reach a certain level of technological advancement before they reveal themselves.
I mean, in terms of like human advancement, I wouldn't worry too much about that aspect of things because I'm relatively confident we're getting dumber as a species with each passing decade. So yeah, I think aliens are probably going to give us a wide berth.
Aliens get bored. They're taking too long, man. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, God, these guys are pretty retarded, aren't they? They're just I from that point of view, in terms of human development, I don't see us even reaching that point. And even with technological development, yeah, we've developed communications technology, but we certainly haven't advanced in terms of human space flight, anything like that. Like we're at the same level that we were in the 1970s.
We had Concorde, right? And what if we added to air travel? Yes, the avionics has improved. The entertainment system in the seat in front of you is way better. But we're still traveling effectively around the world at the same speed. In fact, because Concorde is no longer with us, we can't fly to New York in 3 hours.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at cars. We're traveling on internal combustion engines, which haven't changed a huge amount since like the early 1900s.
Yeah, 100 years.
Yeah, like that's where the level of technology is at. Like, what do you want me to say? Like,
didn't the M1911 stay in service as like default gun for
that's still in service now.
Yeah.
Well, I think didn't it get replaced? I remember watching a video about it, but
well, there's operators that still prefer it because
definitely it's super reliable.
45 caliber rounds, so it's pretty good. Yeah, but that's like a gun. Yeah, like you said, that was made more than 100 years ago.
But it's a classic.
But
it's nice.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna have to bail here. Oh, hello. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I'm gonna run. Thank you.
All right.
Dave, honestly, thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a real treat having you on. Thank you.
God bless, guys. Take care.
I too have to go as well, Dave. It was a great honor to see you, and it's always a great honor to stream with the Drinker and MauLer.
Hell yeah!
And by the way, if you guys have not watched MauLer's videos, set aside a couple of days
to watch one.
And yes, and I would encourage everyone, because Dave Cullen is now delving into the movies that I grew up with as a kid that blew my mind. which was 70s and all the way up to 81 dystopian science fiction. Mr. Cullen is doing a phenomenal series on these movies. And even movies like Silent Running that Arrow has just released in 4K, you can now get all of these movies in great copies on physical media.
So well, thank you for that. I've been asked. This is going to be this is going to be so cringe for me to do this now. A drinker, I'm going to apologize. You know what I'm
Do
going to
it.
do now.
What's happening?
Do it, Dave.
Oh God. Okay. Let me get into the right register here. Hold on. And that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Oh my!
That was shit. It's all right. When I'm doing live streams and people ask me to say that, I always sound like not me. It's weird. Like, I can only do it when I'm making.
You
videos.
sound like an AI.
Yeah, exactly.
God,
Go away now. I love that. I mean, that's been my go-to for most of humanity for the last 3 or 4 years since I've been watching it religiously.
It's weird. I keep telling people to go away, but they keep coming back.
keep
I don't
coming back.
understand
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Why won't you listen to me? Damn it!
All I can say is that everybody, all you people out there, do yourselves a favor. Watch Star Trek Picard Season 3, and before you judge it, just watch all 10 episodes and see where it takes you.
You don't even need 10. Watch the first 2.
Yeah.
First 2, give it a chance. I can pretty much guarantee you'll get bought into it. But
By episode 4, if you haven't bought in by then, you will definitely have. And episode 5 and 6, I think they're the best episodes. I know 9 and 10 fantastic, but 5 and 6 to me are, I think, emotionally the strongest.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Rob,
it sticks the landing.
I'm literally only watching it because of you and Dave. That's it. Like, I wouldn't have experienced it if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you for that.
Well, hey, man, look, I hold your story sensibilities in very high regard. So you should watch it.
All right. Well, we've got links to both of Robert's and Dave's channels in the description. So please, if you haven't followed them already, if you haven't subscribed to them, consider doing it now because they produce amazing content. Both of these guys. And they will not steer you wrong in terms of recommendations for movies and TV shows.
unless they disagree with us.
Yeah, in which case they're definitely wrong and evil. They're probably just AIs, actually.
Hey, come on. You and I did a stream about Star Trek The Motion Picture. If we can be civil about that.
Yeah, well, I think we're broadly in agreement about that as well. So, yeah.
And the 4K is now available. The new remastered Director's Edition is on HBO Max.
Sometime, though, we need to talk about Star Trek Generations. I want to talk about that movie with you. Yeah.
Oh, I actually like Generations. I'm sorry. I like it visually. I actually just think...
Well, no, I'll agree with you there.
Yeah.
But yes, we should do that. We should have a Generations stream. But I will say this. Red Letter Media, I discovered them because of their... Plinkett, I discovered because of their Generation stream. I must have watched it 10 times. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
So that was what, 10 years ago? Whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. They were really good.
All right, gentlemen. I'm gone.
Well,
Take
folks,
care.
All right.
Good to see you, Dave.
Thank you,
We
Dave.
still have to stream, though.
Yes.
We'll talk later.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Gentlemen, bye-bye.
See
Thank
you,
you, Rob.
folks.
All right, MauLer, it's just me.
You like
and
the idea
you.
that we're in the bar, everyone's coming in, we're all having fun, then everyone's like, gotta go. And we're all just like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
Is there an alien invasion going on? I'm getting like end of the world vibes here. Sorry, but anyway, well, I guess this is a good opportunity for you to give me your insight into Ant-Man.
Well, are we going to talk about it next week as well, or because you're going to want to say something, I'd imagine.
I mean, I probably or I might just watch it. I'm going to see it on Monday night. So,
Well, I can give you a broad thing, I suppose.
Yeah,
Why
what's
not,
your
eh?
take on it?
So, like, oh god, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Phase 4 and 5. Not that anyone is shocked by that at all. There's just no signal at all. It's the exact same shit. It's got all the same massive problems that like Love and Thunder, Wakanda Forever, MOM, Black Widow. It's all the same
the
stuff.
joking.
Oh god, dude, this one might be one of the worst ones for Marvel humor. There's so many
Really?
scenarios where like people are dying, there's war, explosions, then they're just doing this stupid fucking jokes. There's a couple of clips that are online already of people talking about it and making fun of it, and it's just like, yep, this is exactly what you'd expect. The premise for the film, as you may know from trailers, is just that they're all chilling. They're just doing the daily life thing. Scott has sold, like, he created a book and sold it, and he's enjoying life, being like appreciated for being an Avenger and stuff. People are 50-50 on this in terms of like, oh, that's nice that he's living his life and doing his thing. But I was just in there like, is that something that Scott Lang wanted to do? Write a book? And like, I was baffled by it. But then the other thought I had was like, wait a minute. You can't do that. Like, Falcon the Winter Soldier was like, he can't make any money. No way possible. It's like, fucking Ant-Man wrote a book and he's selling it, like, on tour. Like, what? Why didn't Falcon do that? I don't know. In any case, really annoying beginning to the film is, like, his whole family just ripping into him for being, like, selfish and not a hero and doing the book and stuff. And his daughter, man. Oh, she's a wonderful little activist doing all kinds of wonderful things in the world.
I've heard about this. Like, she's a fucking activist, and I just think, what a horrible position to be in as a father when your daughter becomes an activist. I'd be like, oh, fuck off,
she's
idiot.
she's like, oh, there's still people in the world who need help, Dad. And he's like, oh, well, oh, gee, oh. It's like, boo.
It's like, I'm literally one human being in 7 billion. Like, what do you expect me to do? Fix the entire planet?
It was annoying to see because I need to rewatch Ant-Man 1 and 2, but from what I remember of Scott Lang, he's just got, like, he's not an ego-driven character, which
no,
he's more of a fun guy.
He wants to make it in life,
but it comes across as though he's like, I'm loving people telling me I'm awesome and a part of, like, the heroes that save the world. So, and I think there's like lines like, yeah, you saved the world. There's still a world in trouble though. Also, like the implication being like, Scott, get back on with it. You like it's kind of weird. There's like this whole dinner table scene near the beginning where they're all kind of ripping into him. And then he like defensively is like, oh yeah, well, what are you guys doing? And then the film just like hard cuts to a different film where they're like, Scott, let us show you our new project we're working on that relates to the thing you were just talking about. It's like, wait, what? And it turns out his daughter has devised a, I think he refers to it as a like quantum Hubble telescope that can map out all of the quantum universe. and it's just it's so bad for like character and stuff because Michelle Pfeiffer's character is like, no, you guys haven't done now, and she tries to stop them, and then it's too late. They all get sucked into the quantum verse because we find out that they've been dragged down there for plot reasons or whatever. But it's so like, wait, what? And they have these really shit throwaway lines where they're like, why didn't you tell us that what's going on in the quantum verse? Why didn't you tell us not to do this? Or why didn't you get me involved? And they're just like, oh, you just wouldn't talk to us about it. So we just didn't tell you anything about all the stuff we're working on, talking about the quantum. It's literally where she's from. She lived there for 30 years. It's like, but yeah, they said they didn't get her advice on any of it because she seemed awkward about talking about it.
I fucking hate this. I hate this already. I hate the premise behind it. I hate the writing. I hate the entire storyline.
I'm only telling you premise, guys, so don't worry. The other side of the premise, I suppose you'd say, is that Kang, as part of the Council of Kangs, was too evil, I guess, and a bit bloodthirsty, and so they banished him.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about the Council of Ricks now.
Yeah,
from Rick and Morty.
Everyone's going to be making that
Rick
joke.
Of all the Ricks.
And so, they banish him to the quantum realm. And like, I was just like, why didn't they kill him?
Yeah.
It's like, well, they didn't. And do you know what? They banished him with a ship that can travel the multiverse, but they took a part out of it.
Oh, God.
Or they damaged a part of it. Either way, he crash lands, and do you know who he happens to crash land next to? It's Michelle Pfeiffer from when she was first lost in the quantum world. And it looks to be they're in this vast, infinite abyss of quantum shit, and they both landed right next to each other. It's like, okay. Sure, why not? That makes the story happen, I guess. And they work together for years or something, and she helps fix his ship. But unfortunately, Drinker, again, this is all premise, so don't worry. Unfortunately, his ship is neural linked, meaning if you touch his ship, you'll know everything that's going on in his mind and his history. And so she does that, and she finds out he's an evil, evil villain. I remember just thinking, like, this is so fucking lame. This is just the memory store shit. You can't come up with any good. And once again, you'd be like, how would you do it? It's like dialogue. You have her talk to him, and he's going to say some stuff that's going to be a bit sketchy sometimes. He'll say something that's a bit slipped. You'll say, let him, And when she does it, he's like, what did you see? And she's like, you're a bad man. And then he's like, yes, yes, it's true. Like, instead of saying something like, oh, what you just saw was nonsense, or someone else, or an alternate history, or a vision, he just says, yep, no, I'm evil. Yeah, you got me. And this is like, okay. And he's like, you can't stop me. He even has a line where he's like, there's nothing you can do. And she just throws her Ant-Man things at him. You know, the shrinky, growy things? She throws them at the most important component of his ship and destroys it. And I was just like, well, there you go. Like, I don't know why he didn't know that was a thing. He just, yeah. And so she gets pulled out in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he's stuck down there, forever devising a plan to get out. And then, guess what the stakes are, Drinker? You guessed it. Destroy the multiverse. That's what he wants to do. And yeah, so she knows this. She ran a rebel force against him for years before she was pulled out, and she never told anyone that there is a literal psychopathic, nanoscopic king right now in that world trying to destroy us all. She never told anybody.
Because I'm going to be honest, right? Like, with Kang as a character, if you're going to try and, like, stack him up against someone like Thanos, you're going to have to, like, come in pretty hard with this guy. And we had him in Loki, and he was just this goofy guy in an office behind his desk, like, just waiting to die because, like, he was the fun-loving Kang, you know? He's just the scientist version. And okay, fine. You know, if he's just a facet of Kang's multiversal reality, then what we need now is the terrifying version of Kang. That's going to really build this guy up as an antagonist, because he is the next Thanos, isn't he? He's the guy
Supposed
that's going to
yeah.
be dominating the multiverse saga. And so we need to see a terrifying version of him. And what you're describing just seems like kind of a shit one. Like, it's just a guy who's marooned in the quantum realm because he was too evil or something.
Pretty much.
And it doesn't seem like he's that scary.
Oh, he's a different performance than in Loki. He's like he's more reserved and angry and tormented, you could say. But like, I wasn't particularly moved by it. He's still too stupid throughout the movie in terms of everything he does. The amount of power I just want to say he's beaten by ants.
Right.
I mean, they're hyper technologically advanced ants, so you got that, I guess.
I just want to leave. That's it. We're done. We're ending the stream now. Like, fuck it. We're done.
I don't even. There's so much to say. I don't know where else to go with this exactly, but Modoc. I really want to talk to Gary about what Modoc is in the comics, because I want to know what any fan of Modoc thinks about what the fuck they've done to this.
What is he in the movie?
So if you remember Ant-Man 1, I think was his name Darren Cross, I think, was the antagonist in that film.
The bad guy. Oh yeah.
He got sucked down and belubed into the quantum realm. Kang found him and I guess saved his life, and so he is literally a head with tiny flume arms and legs.
Oh, fuck off! No. I thought he just got crushed, like, and he was dead. You know, because
he's back.
Inside... Oh, and God, like the least memorable villain in all of Marvel.
This part I will happily spoil. He spends the film basically talking about how fucking awesome and cool he is and how he destroys everything with his guns and rockets, and he's the ultimate killing machine, right? Modoc stands for, like, only for killing, something, machine built only for something like that. And they make fun of that, by the way. They make fun of his name in the film. It's like a fucking requirement at this point that everyone's names from the comics get made fun of. It's so weird. Like, I can't not point out the pattern. They've done this so many times. In any case, he's just like Kang's personal killing machine, but he's kind of like a clown, and everyone laughs at him and throws him around, and everyone insults him, makes fun of his appearance. And then toward the end, he fights Ant-Man's daughter and loses, of course. And then he's like, what am I, wait, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, don't be a dick. And he's like, but I am a dick. And then she's like, you don't have to be a dick forever, or something. Like, everyone can, and he's like, okay. And then he sacrifices himself to save the multiverse, and everyone makes fun of him for it.
More, no. Like, what you're describing, this movie just makes me want to stop watching movies.
it's really hard to watch because he's dying, and they walk up to him and they're like, "Thank you so much, like for your sacrifice. Like, thank you for what you did." And then he's like, "It's crazy that I'll die, an Avenger." And then they're all looking at him like, "No, you're not. You're not." And it's just like, why are we doing this shit? I just don't understand. You can't like have any kind of respect or sadness for anything ever.
Well, this is something I heard about this movie, that they started out with a relatively somber and like serious film about, you know, sacrifice and all that stuff. And the directive came down from Marvel that, no, we need to inject the usual Marvel humor into it. Exactly like the kind of shit that you always describe, like, well, that was a thing that happened. You know, is that something that permeates this movie?
If you remember, we had a conversation not too long ago where I think you said, judging from the trailer, like this could finally be a movie where they take it seriously. And I think I said to you, no fucking way, it's gonna be filled with jokes. Like I said, this one more so than most. I realized like the jokes were fucking hitting me in the head so hard because there's like a scene where a bunch of rebel fighters realize that by Ant-Man and his daughter being with them, that'll give their position away to Modoc and Kang, and so if they arrive, then you're all going to get killed. And that happens. They come in, missiles are flying, explosions are everywhere. And then Ant-Man is just like, you know, make sure you hit people properly. You got to jump up and then hit them. And then she's like, what? And he goes, let me show you. And does it. Then he's like, did you see that? She's like, you're too small. I can't see anything. And then he's just like, oh, you got to do it better. And it's like, it's just all these like really upbeat and fun things. It's literal people like screaming and dying around them. I'm just like, I can't do this. It's so bad. And it happens throughout the whole movie. It's the same Marvel problem, but I feel like I got cranked up here, which is ironic, right? Because you might have expected it was going to be less than usual.
I mean, the trailers kind of portrayed it that way, but then you can cut a trailer any way you want to like give you a different emotional tone, and like yeah, it just seemed like it was going to be a more serious like movie with actual stakes involved, and it just seems like we got another goofy Marvel movie.
Well, to give you an explanation on the ants situation, because I've seen a lot of people are still talking about it. It's like, yeah, I guess we can explain. I'm going to say this. You're not going to understand it, but I'm going to say it anyway. When they all got sucked into the quantum realm, they got sucked into different parts of it by Modoc, and Modoc and Kang didn't know where they ended up. They just pulled them in. And so I'm not even going to start with the likelihoods and of survival and how anything of that. I'm just not even going to go there. But the ants in Hank's room got sucked in too. And they ended up at one part of the quantum realm that Hank says was just far enough and out of the way that they experience like 1,000 years per day for us. And so they've advanced to a hyper, super duper ant civilization. And Drinker, brace yourself. I need you to grab your bottle in case you need it. This is going to be a tough one. The ants have fixed his ship. They're doing this, that, and the other. They're going to be the reason they can beat the day. And Hank says, the camera goes right on him, and he says, you know, socialism is a charged word, but I think you can see that there's a lot of benefits to it. And then he gets cut off, and I was just like, you fucking kidding me, really? Like, did you just compare socialists to an individuality lost hive mind? Like,
I don't want to see this movie.
Yeah, well, you gotta for the people, I guess.
I had this weird like hope somewhere in my heart or my mind that like this would be different. You know, they learned a few of their lessons from Phase 4, and this was going to be a little bit more serious, a bit more grounded, a little bit less about the message, and it was just going to be a better movie overall. And clearly, I was wildly mistaken, sir.
It's shit. But I mean, if you want to save more of it for when we hit it next week, if you want to, it's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll watch it, and like if I've got something really interesting I want to say about it, then fair enough. I think it could just end up being one of those movies where I'm just like, yep, just another Marvel film.
There it is. Yep.
You know,
I will say I was once again. I don't know what it is with me, but I was surprised. You'd be like, "Why were you surprised?" Like, I was surprised. I didn't think it would be this bad, but there we are.
And this is it. This is the kickoff for Phase 5. How excited are you for Phase 5, MauLer?
Wasn't it originally just going to be in Phase 4 anyway? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. With
as if it makes a fucking difference. Phase 4 and 5 are the same thing.
Yeah.
And people are asking, you going to make a video? No guarantees on anything, folks. All right, that's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, you need like a 2-year lead time on MauLer to make a video on something.
Exactly.
So, you know, you got.
Dude, even Drinker doesn't know what videos are coming necessarily for a while. Okay, like for my videos, like I don't even tell him.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. But hey, you know, good news, MauLer. We've got the Marvels to look forward to.
Yes, that's the next one. No, wait, Guardians is first, so we can have what will be the equivalent of like probably a biscuit thrown to us after the shower of shit.
Yeah, is Guardians in May? And then,
not-
like, the Marvels is in July.
I'd have to check the dates, but Guardians is something that I imagine at worst will be okay. It's probably going to be fine. There's probably some stuff in there we'll like.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be all right.
I'm hoping it'll be really good. That'd be nice. But it won't mean anything. The guy who created it isn't a part of Marvel anymore, so...
Yeah, James Gunn's just like, yeah, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm here. I'm off to salvage the absolute, like, wreck that is DC on film.
Yep.
Goddamn. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is that is Ant-Man 3. We do have some super chats that have come in. Should we?
Let's
crack
have a
at doing
bash
few
of
of
them, shall we?
Yeah, let's do as many as we can anyway before the end of everything. Right, here's a choice for us, right, from Waylon Bicephus. He says, would you rather have Arthur Morgan's lungs or Mindy Kaling's brain?
I'd
take the lungs because they're still functional.
Yeah.
From the same guy says, dysentery or finish watching Velma season 1? A dysentery, easily. That probably involved less shit, ultimately.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll have an allergic reaction to Velma by the time I hit the end of season 1.
On the plus side, though, Velma's been renewed for season 2.
Yes!
There's, according to Collider, there's no stopping this queer icon. Thank God. I was worried about that.
I'm sure Disparu is over the moon about that.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Gonna be honest with you, Trigger, I'm not over the moon about it, but I don't see it as because obviously the surrounding conversation is like, aha, hate watching, got it a second season. It's like, I don't believe that for a second.
I would love to know what got it a second season. Just pure fucking malicious spite.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff about how like it was always going to get a second season. Like it was built for like, at least 2. There's no way the view counts are like high enough that they were like, holy shit, this is in such high demand. We have to get a season 2 out as soon as possible. It's like, what is this, fucking Rick and Morty? I don't think so. Like the show isn't just rancid. It's really not fucking funny. I don't see people watching it and going, oh, we need more of this. So yeah,
I would take the dysentery for sure.
Yes.
Andrew McCarthy says, can someone tell me how Spider-Man 2 is great? Doc Ock is inconsistent. He throws a car at Peter when he needs him alive. Wow. Lucky he was Spidey. Also, he somehow survives the fall from a skyscraper.
From a skyscraper? Is that the train part, or I can't remember? But hey, man,
not sure. I mean, I would put that under the stuff of under the realm of like fight scene editing goofs, I guess.
Yeah, I'm happy to call out sort of flaws or goofs like that where they exist. But I think, well, that's kind of what makes like movies that have like, I don't know, pristine, flawless fight scenes to be so celebratory. Because it is difficult to pull it off.
Yeah, but for me, like there's a clear distinction between like a serious flaw in the story or the character motivations or decisions or whatever versus, hey, they just like edited a scene quite roughly, or this fight scene looked a bit shit because the actors didn't quite do what they needed to do, or they threw in a bit of action into this scene to make it look dramatic, but in reality it's a bit inconsistent or whatever. Like those are two very different things for me, and
it is
one takes me out the story a lot more than the other.
It is character inconsistency that definitely bothers me the most, which is funny with Ant-Man because, like Hope and Michael Douglas, like their characters, they're just in the film. They don't really do or say much of anything throughout. They're just sort of there. It's like I don't even know what I'd say about them as characters.
Why does Hope look like she got her hair cut in a fucking vending machine or something? Like
I don't know.
It's like they took Evangeline Lilly, who's a pretty attractive woman, and they just made her as like horrific as possible, and I don't understand why. Like, why do they hate her so much?
I mean, like she has barely a role in this film. In fact, I'm not going to explain it. It's too much. It's something that happens in it that makes so little sense, but I'd have
It's
to
like,
do a whole bunch of preamble.
it's like, oh, I'm so tired when it comes to
I'm a
Marvel
little bit, yeah.
movies.
A
I
little
just
bit.
don't want to do it. Andrew McCarthy also asked, what is your favorite Marvel and DC movies and why?
So, favorite Marvel movie for me is going to be a toss-up between. I mean, so in the running would be Iron Man, Avengers 1, Civil War. Is that it for the list? I'm trying to think of. Infinity War is pretty high up as well. I really like that. I guess we can go outside the MCU as well, right?
Well, could I count Blade 2 in that?
Yeah, I think you're allowed. Yeah.
That might be my favorite.
Really, your favorite? Damn.
I just like, in terms of movies that I just enjoy watching, like repeat viewing and stuff, and just like the quality of the actors and stuff involved. I just like that more than the MCU. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
For DC, I don't know. Batman Returns is going to be up there for me. I spoke about this on. Was it the last open bar I was talking about this? I really like that movie.
Would you put like The Dark Knight in there?
Yeah, obviously that could be in the running. What else would it be? I mean, I really liked Watchmen. I haven't seen it in a while though.
What umbrella does that come under? Because it's not really DC, is it?
I thought it was like an offshoot of DC. Is it not?
I thought it was its own thing.
I suppose.
Like kind of a separate universe sort of thing.
If it's separate, then yeah, you can ignore that. Oh, Joker. Yeah. Is Logan high up for you for Marvel?
It would be, I think, yeah. Not necessarily a movie I want to keep rewatching, but I recognize how good it was, for what it was doing. And I always feel sad about it because it's like, damn, they finally made a great Wolverine movie, and it was the last one, and it took like 15 years.
Hey,
to
we
get
got
to
one
that
more
point.
now.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be great, but never
Apparently
mind.
Professor X is cameoing in it too. Woohoo!
Yeah,
He'll get killed.
yeah. I just wanted to like appear and go no, and then it just gets neck snapped, and then just collapses. It wasn't until you pointed that out. Like, if you were just an observer watching that, like, man, how surreal would that moment be? Where it just goes like no, and then just immediately dies. That'd be great. But yeah, in terms of Logan was fantastic. The Christopher Reeve Superman movie, like the original, and like probably the Dorna cut of Superman 2. I think those would be probably my favorite DC movies, and yeah, The Dark Knight as well. So yeah. Juan Garcia says, Nostalgia Critic says that Matrix 1 is bad. EFAP him.
I haven't seen the video, but hey, you're entitled to your opinions out there. They're wonderful.
Good stuff, Nostalgia Critic. Barry McCockner says, Hail, my man, can you get some member emojis for your chats? I bet the peeps here would love to have them. If you're unsure, can you do a poll in chat to decide it? So what is this? Some member emojis in your chats. I don't do like channel memberships or anything at the moment because I've got enough other things to administer. So yeah, I'm not sure how you do that. Have you had any of that?
Yeah, and if you can get some emotes, it could be fun to have like drinker emotes and maybe some MauLer ones, so that when we do these live streams, people can throw in some faces, some expressions. I don't know.
Do people have to be members to be able to use those emojis, or are they just going to be there? Right. Okay. Okay, I'll see what I can do. RRTNZ says, Hail Drinker, changing things up from my usual pleas for Dodgeball, Airplane, and Father Ted, and in honor of Star Trek's return to form, I highly recommend the DS9 episode In the Pale Moonlight, all about conscience in time of war. I feel like I've seen that one as well, when Cisco has to do something really fucking horrible. Yeah, I think Mauler, you as a storyteller would really appreciate DS9 in terms of like characters having their morals and their principles really put to the test and having to do really difficult
The Star
things.
Trek show.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do genuinely intend to watch Star Trek from start to finish one day. I'll have to put time aside, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think you would get a lot out of it from a writing point of view. I think you'd find it quite rewarding. There'd be a lot of things to criticize as well, but like I think generally your opinion would be quite good of it.
All right.
Grimnack says it's hilarious that after OC was destroyed by Eric July, he makes organized chaos. Sorry, was destroyed by Eric July. He makes sure he has his PR rep with him now in interviews. Cheers, massives. I don't know what that's referring to exactly, but
I've just seen choice clips. It's been funny as hell. Yeah, Eric is a machine.
I think, yeah. I think that's the problem with guys like that. It's like if you bring them on your channel to debate them, it's like even if you win and humiliate them, like they're ultimately going to get more attention and more, more clout for their channel.
They certainly feel that way, I'm sure. But
yeah, I mean, it's like the thing is, if you're just a fucking like nobody clout chasing arsehole, and your only objective is to get more attention, then it doesn't matter if it destroys your reputation because you didn't have one to begin with, And I think that's probably what people like that are doing. It's just like anything to get more clout. John Smith says, what are your thoughts on Joss Whedon? Did the sudden accusations against him feel genuine or calculated? Ooh, good question. I think you're more of a Joss Whedon fan than I am.
I'm a big Joss Whedon fan. Some of his works are some of my favorites of all time. So, but simultaneously, I recognize he's done and said horrible things to different people in different places. Probably. I wonder how they compare to some of the most famous directors of all times and their sort of quote unquote most horrible things ever said. I'm not going to say I know for sure, like Hitchcock or why am I blanking? There's loads of like famous directors that have had a lot of people say like they're absolute assholes to work with, sort of thing. And it sounded like Joss Whedon was the kind of person that would be willing to tell you, "Fuck off! This is my script. I don't care about your ideas." That sort of thing. There's the story about Spike got to be more and more famous and popular in the show when Joss wanted him to be a bad guy to represent bad things. And so he was like, "Stop being so fucking likable. Like I'm going to be killing you. You know that, right?" And of course, James Marsden was just like, "Sure, yeah, 100%." And the fucker is so charming that he eventually gets written into being one of the most important components to saving the world, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things going on. The accusation for like telling Gal Gadot that she's like he doesn't care about her input for a character, and that I think he said it is like the later interview he said like she doesn't understand English very well or something. It was just like, holy fuck, John, what are you doing? Some of the worst ones are like when he was allegedly, because I don't know the truth about all these things, but like Charisma Carpenter being pregnant during filming for Angel, and so he was like, "Are you gonna abort?" Which depending on the context could be one of the most fucking horrifying things you could say to a person. Like, and she took it incredibly badly. And then of course, what you see happen to her character in the later seasons, it makes you think like, holy shit, they must have hated each other at that point. And then you got like there's a couple of sort of implications about possibly sexual misconduct. I don't know if there's anything definitive on that. Now, the interesting part to me was that I think it was the handler for the main character in Dollhouse, the guy who played Wesley, the guy who played Giles, the girl who played Fred. Those, including many more, have said either nothing or that they were around for all of this and they didn't see any of the crazy misconduct people are talking about. And I felt particularly bad in Anthony Head's case because he said he felt like a father to the people on set, the character who played the guy who played Giles. And he said, like, he wouldn't have let this stand if he knew there was like abuse. And, I guess, sadly, he must have missed it. And it's just like, I'm not sure if it was a matter of a director being a dick to too many of the wrong people at the wrong time that all collected up and shot him out of the industry, or he's an awful person. I don't actually know. I don't think we ever will, because his career is dead.
I think for none of us having been there, like, we're never going to know from personal experience. But
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, he was eaten alive by the Me Too movement that he would have likely helped foster as well. So there's some
I
unfortunate
think it's
irony there.
yeah. I've said this before. Like when it came to people like J.K. Rowling, like there's nothing that people like that hate more than like one of their own who breaks ranks and doesn't do exactly what they're supposed to do. And
And
the moment that there's even a hint of like heresy on their part, like they are targets to be destroyed. That's all they become. And I think, yeah, Joss Joss fostered that and like ultimately got destroyed by that. So fair play.
it's unfortunate too, because the most recent writing he did was for the Nevers. I watched that with Rags and Fringy, and we were like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. I like this show." It's cancelled, of course. Like it's none of.
I mean,
not a surprise.
how much do you think Justice League came like? How much of a part did that play in his downfall? I know that the accusations and stuff
Instrumental.
were a separate thing, but like that seemed to be the thing that like
the
destroyed
dominoes where he pissed off was it Ray Parker by demanding he say booyah because that's what Cyborg says. That's his catchphrase. Joss knows that because he's obsessed with the comics. He took that as a slight alongside some other things, so he made a big stink about it all. And then Charisma Carpenter was inspired, and so she brought out her thing, and I think he was doomed the second she did that.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray Fisher, sorry. Ray Park is. I'm thinking of fucking Darth Maul.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah. I knew what you were going for there.
So yeah, that's another irony. Had he never taken the project for Justice League, he'd probably be fine right now.
I do feel a touch of sympathy for him on Justice League. I feel like he was handed a basically impossible task. I imagine, the amounts of money he was probably offered to try and fix this thing were pretty tempting, but
Oh yeah, like it's an awful film, but I don't think anybody was going to be able to fix that in that amount of time.
no.
Especially
Like,
with
for him
CGI
to fix
mustache,
it-
super bad.
That was just like whenever I think about that, that's one of those farcical moments in Hollywood history. It's just like it's so ridiculous. It could only be true,
Yeah.
I love it.
Some people have said like he can keep writing. It's like he can. It's just that I don't think anybody's going to be asking him to make anything. So he can just sort of he can write his
He
own
doesn't-
stories, I
he-
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the pull that he had 10 years ago. He was on top of the world after he did Avengers.
He was. Things are going really well, and I just it's done now. Because the thing is, like you hear, like Ryan Johnson, he gets like golden reviews from every actor that ever works with him. Apparently, it's just a joy to be on set, and it's like that's great, but his films are awful, and so you start to wonder, especially if you've seen Buffy and Angel, some of the most extreme scenes in terms of actors having to put in performances. Like I've talked to Frank about this a bunch of times. Like if you knew some of the greatest performances of all time were drawn out by a really fucking harsh director, an absolute dick. Is that worth it?
Well, look at Stanley Kubrick.
That's the one people often reference.
Well, look what he puts his actors through. Like, I can divorce myself from like the harsh reality of having made that and just say like, well, the end product was fantastic. And so yeah, recognize that the actors were probably put through a really tough time, but
So-
the end result was probably worth it.
So can we say it's worth it? Just watch out. They'll come and get you.
It's worth it if the director's intent is to just make a great story or make a great movie, seriously. And I think with Stanley Kubrick, that's probably what you had. Like there was no weird, like perverted, power fantasy there or anything. I think it was just he had a tunnel vision goal of what he wanted his movie to be, and he needed the actors to be able to deliver that. And he was just going to keep going until he got what he wanted.
Yeah.
Which I can respect, like that's just a man who's focused on his end goal. I think with someone like Joss Whedon, when you get these accusations of abuse and stuff from castmates, particularly the women that he worked with him being like this staunch male feminist, I think it just creates this image of like a guy who was maybe just a wee bit, there was a bit of like a kink or something going on there, and like him being like in a position of power over all these women that he was working with. That's when it goes from being like an artist pursuing his goal to just like a fucking middle-aged man just looking for his next turn on. You know what I mean?
He did talk at some point about like how being surrounded by so many hot women when they're all willing to sleep with you for more like, everyone knows why, it's the industry. I think he even admitted like he'd cheat on his wife as a result of all that and stuff, and that's where all this shit came from. Is like, sorry, you're a feminist. Like, nice.
Yeah, like, and it's like the reality behind it all is just this mundane realization of like he's just a fat, balding, middle-aged man who just suddenly had access to all these like hot young women who are willing to do what it takes to advance their careers, and he took advantage of that. It's like, well, okay, but it's like you've set yourself up to be something better than that, and you're clearly not. You know, that's where people lose respect for you, I guess.
Yeah.
JS Pena says, finally, Dave's on open bar. I know. God, I can't believe Dave was a fucking tough nut to crack. It wasn't like he wasn't reluctant to come on or anything. It was just trying to find the guy and try and get in touch with him. It took a little bit of work, but finally got there. So I'm glad we got him on. Also, JS Pena says, Drinker, since June the 1st is going to land on a Thursday, it would be the perfect date to do a happy hour on the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Okay. Why?
I mean,
What's significant about June the 1st? Is that when
Don't you know?
Is that when the first Pirates movie came out? I don't know.
It's probably something to do with that, I guess. Is June a piratey month? I don't know. Which is the pirate month?
Wait, is it Talk Like a Pirate Day?
Oh. Like a pirate day. Let's have a look.
Yar, we be talking like pirates today, mateys.
Ah, no, that's September 19th, apparently.
Oh. I don't know what the significance is then. But, well, it's always a good time to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean.
True.
Marky Mark says, hi, Drinker and MauLer. Well, that's handy, because it's just the two of us now. I really enjoy the videos that you guys put out. Good. I was wondering if you guys have seen the series Band of Brothers. If so, would you mind sharing some of your thoughts on it?
It's been so long since I've seen it. All I have to really say right now is just that it's excellent. It's one of the greatest TV shows ever, and I often feel bad when I forgot to mention it when people ask me what are some of the greatest TV series.
Yeah. People ask me about this a lot on live streams, actually. Like, do a review of Band of Brothers. I guess I've never got around to it, but like, yeah, much like you. Watched it when it came out. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic, not sequel to Saving Private Ryan, but, you know, like something set in that same vein. Brilliant show, brilliant actors that they had involved. I think the fact that it was made at a time when a lot of the original people who were actually involved in this stuff were still alive. They were obviously very old men, and getting those interviews with them at the end of each episode was just the icing on the cake. Yeah, absolutely loved it. I don't think they could have done a better job with Band of Brothers. Didn't love the Pacific quite as much, but you know, them's the breaks. Next one is Elsie Lapin says, so the Super Bowl's come and gone, and yet still no trailer for the Marvels. The silence around this movie is fascinating. Just how bad is this thing? I think it's going to be really fucking awful.
I think so too.
Is Nia DaCosta or something that her name is that directed it? Who's basically just a sort of lefty ideologue, like, rather than a film director, and so yeah, it seems like it's the perfect storm of shittiness. I can't wait to see this trailer, and I can't wait to see the movie. I think it's going to be an epic disaster. But hey, you know, we can all point and laugh at it, I think.
I just googled what month is Pirate Month, and Google's funny sometimes. It just goes August. It's like, oh,
It's
okay.
just the Pirate Month. Fair play. Taker610 says, somebody put MauLer's head onto Sam Smith's inflated black costume from the Brit Awards. MauLer would wear it better. Or Drinker or Gary, maybe. Yeah, I think the best description I've seen of that was that it looks like Pinhead from from the Cenobites. Like he's had anaphylactic shock and just all his body's like horribly swollen up. Yeah, just... Well, I'm just really tired of seeing Sam Smith and his ridiculously fat, bloated body and everything. I just don't want to see him anymore.
If someone tried to like argue to me the artistic value of that fucking outfit, I just wouldn't be able to stop laughing. Just like, you bet, 100%.
Mr. Luca says, "Blessed be the dawn. All hail King MauLer."
Oh, everyone's upset at you because you said from the Cenobites instead of from Hellraiser.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I couldn't quite. Yeah, I couldn't quite
You get 3
name the
lashing
movie.
for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I had to work with like the little scraps of information that I could dredge up from my drunken brain. This is the problem, right? When you're halfway through a bottle of Jack.
I was going to say, we're in the third hour of open bar, okay? We're allowed to start... The mind runs around.
I know, yeah. The open bar doesn't normally run this long. I'll do a few more super chats and then finish up. So, Waylon Bicephus says, Mike Oxmall versus Hugh Hugh Janus? Who you got? I don't know. I don't know what you're doing.
What? I don't recognize.
Mike Oxmall versus Hugh Janus. Who you got? I don't know.
Oh, I get it. Say them again, drinkers. Think about it.
Mike Oxmall.
Yeah. Get it?
No.
You don't get it?
I don't get this.
Say it all like it's one word.
Mike Oxmo. Yeah, I get it now. My money's on Hugh Janus, if I'm honest.
Yes.
He can accommodate anything. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, I want to... I want to... I'm done. We should end it there. I want to support Picard Season 3 because it's done by a fan, for the fans, as a last goodbye to TNG. I don't want his boss to take the credit. Thoughts? Well, I think, we kind of gave our thoughts in the course of this very long discussion about it. It's a complicated thing, and I totally get people who don't want to support it just because they're playing the bigger strategic game. But, man, I just come down on the side of quality art, and good storytelling by people who care. And that's what I'd like to support. And I guess the question is, say you've got, Alex Kurtzman's production company who, carries on making TV shows in the Star Trek universe for the next 10 years, but, they're done by people who do a really good job, like Terry Matalas with this Season 3. Would you support it then? Knowing that you're going to get good stuff, but it's made by shit people?
It's a curious case because for the people who are no support until they apologize and respect the fans, so to speak, it would be interesting to know if you knew that supporting this season ends shit Trek and begins years of great Trek, would you do it then? And if they still said no, it's okay. Well, I mean, because people are going to weigh up this sort of stuff differently, I would say. I understand boycotting, I do. And a lot of the time, even if I don't agree with the boycott, if someone's doing it, I'll be like, all right, man. It's absolutely your thing, your choice. But we often try to do the whole call a spade thing. And it seems like, from what I'm gathering from all of these guys, is that they just want to tell you what this was. And it was not Season 1 and 2. It was something very different.
Yeah. Kevin O'Neill says, in regards to the brave folks who bought Hogwarts Legacy just to smash it, I imagine those soft hands needed a week of physical therapy after swinging a hammer for the first time. Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. I think the one that was doing the rounds on social media was Plain Rock, who bought the entire deluxe gift collectible set of Hogwarts Legacy and then smashed it up. It's yeah. You've just paid $100 for this shit, man. I'm sure J.K. Rowling's gutted that you smashed it up. What's the point? What are you trying to do? Zachariah Nunez says, I made. Yeah, I made too. Zagros Ozcan says, Drinker, who would you rather do, Velma or Galadriel? You gotta pick one. Fuck.
Galadriel.
I think so, yeah. As long as she doesn't smile and she's not riding a horse, I think she'd probably be the better choice. Yeah,
it's preferable when you're with a girl that she's not riding a horse at the same time.
It's that smile, man. If she cracked that kind of smile when we're getting down with it, I'd be terrified. I'd be like, oh, I think you're about to shit yourself or something, But yeah, definitely her over Velma, because Velma just makes me want to It makes me want to do like a Dr. Manhattan, just abandon the whole human race. As his wonky eyebrows says, "Hey gents, nice to see MauLer awake in time today."
Oh, I was late to Real BBC. That's my bad.
Oh, what are you doing?
I missed the people saying you missed the Last of Us discussion. I was like, fuck. Like, as far as I know, me and Az are like 100% opposites on that one.
I once messaged you like 6 a.m, right? And you were like, "What the fuck are you doing up at this hour?" And I was like, "Well, what the fuck are you doing up at this hour?" And you were like, "He just went, I'm MauLer."
That's my thing.
It's like, I don't sleep, I wait.
Yeah.
Cannon Folderall says, "A hail intoxicated scholar and incorrigible long man." There we go. It's a pretty good description. And I'll do one more here. Fight the Club says, hello all. I wanted to catch the first Picard episodes, but this lineup is too good not to listen to live. Looking forward to the banter from the best nerd minds America and Potato Europe have to offer. I think we did a pretty good job there, didn't we?
I think so too.
We had
I was going to say, is it
Scotland.
worth you doing a really quick thoughts on the latest episode of Last of Us? Because we've been covering them each open bar, but not this week.
Oh, okay. How quick can I make this? I thought generally it was a really good episode. I think it gave a good explanation to Kathleen as a leader, or not so much of a leader of the Kansas quarantine zone. The fact that she was so focused on her goal of revenge to the exclusion of all else ultimately was her undoing. I thought Henry and his brother were pretty well realized within the concept of the TV show. I was a little bit miffed that Ellie knew that the little brother had been bitten, but didn't do anything about it. Didn't tell anyone. Sort of deviated from the games there, not necessarily in a way I would have wanted to see. But overall, it was a pretty hard hitting episode, and I think the show's still hanging in there.
Wow.
So that would be my take on it.
Do you? Because I don't know if you feel that way on top of do you feel like you got an idea of why she didn't want to tell anybody?
I think there was a sort of naive, childish belief that she could cure him, and so she didn't need to tell people because she was worried that they would just straight up kill him right off the bat. So
Yeah, I figure after what happened with
motivation.
Tess, she knows that if she tells Joel, that kid's dead.
Yeah. And so she was ultimately proven wrong there. I might have liked to have seen a little bit of resolution of that between her and Joel, like that recognition of oh, I really fucked up there and I'm sorry.
Funny enough, I actually went with your interpretation. This is not something I actually got from when I watched it, and I'm going to mention it in the next coverage now on EFAP. But what you said about how when she put that "I'm sorry" down, it's not just to almost Sam and Henry, but it's to Joel as well. Recognizing the situation. Not even just the decision not to tell him about the bite, but also just the whole thing, right? Like she encouraged him hardcore to stick with these guys, to work with them, and that's how it ended up,
Yeah, because you could kind of interpret that as she wrote that down knowing that Joel was going to take a look at it after her, and she couldn't verbalize it necessarily because it was difficult for her, and that's how she rationalized it. Maybe I'm being a little bit too forgiving towards the writers and the character here, but you could interpret it that way, and I think that would be quite a neat way of rationalizing it for her.
Yeah, my take is that as much as he could dig into her a bit for her decision, I think there's a recognition that we all know what just happened. It was fucking horrible. We all know what should have happened. We're digging graves. We're gonna move on. But for all we know, they do have a chat in the next episode, maybe. I don't know. But I agree with you. I think that we are still solid right now. We're not in disaster territory.
It's a weird one, this show. I feel like it's getting close to that line between being really good and being shit. It's just I think in the case of The Last of Us, that line is quite narrow and it's walking that tightrope right now. I just hope it stays on the right side of it. But it could very easily go wrong. And I think, very much like with Picard, there's a lot of people who are just waiting for it to fuck up and make that misstep.
Well, we shall see.
Yeah. I just, we're 5 episodes in what, a 9-episode season, so there's only 4 to go. It's done pretty well so far. I will say, just purely based on what we've seen so far, it's probably one of the best video game to TV adaptations I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm much more positive on it than you are, but funnily enough, you're much more positive on it than a lot of people are. So it's like this very strange scale we got going right now.
It's a tough one, but all of this comes down to the philosophy that I think you can apply to Picard as well, where it's like, judge a piece of art on its own merits rather than all the meta surrounding it. It's obviously very easy to say like, well, Last of Us 2 was an awful game and it really tarnished the first one, and so like we're going to judge the TV show based on that. But it's like, well, okay, you can do that if you want to, or you can judge the TV show on its own merits, just as its own separate thing, and see where that goes. I don't know, like it's ultimately what do you want to get from it. I think you'll probably have a more enjoyable time with it if you just judge it on its own merits, and it's the same with Picard season 3.
Yeah, there's a similar environment there. People don't want to give anything to Naughty Dog or Neil Druckmann. It's like, well, want to call a spade once again.
Yeah. But hey, we've been going for over 3 hours now. I think we've done as much as we can do tonight before I pass out. So I'm probably going to finish it up there, and we'll do our usual thing. We'll get through all the super chats, on maybe Sunday night. But I just want to say, well, thank you for everyone who's joined us for this one. Hopefully we've shed a little bit of light on whether Picard Season 3 is worth watching. I hope we've encouraged you to think about it at least a little bit. And yeah, like, it's been great to have Rob back on. It's been great to have Dave on for the first time, and always good to have Gary on as well. So,
yeah,
good stuff. Yeah,
it's good fun.
Yeah, I'm sorry you basically had like an hour and a half where you had nothing you could say because we were just talking Star Trek geekiness.
I like listening to those passionate peeps talk about their interests. It's all good to me. I was just like in chat with like, wake up, MauLer. It's like, I am listening. I'm not asleep.
The long man waits. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in for this, and thank you for all the super chats. So I guess that's all we've got for today. So we're gonna go away now.
Bye.